Happy Friday. Hopefully the week's been treating you folks well. So I can see Jeff's already got the first comment. Good evening, Jeff. Hopefully things are going well with you. So this week was actually kind of fun. We did have actually a couple of different topics that came up, so it was good. I was able to have a video earlier on in the week about the CSG price increases. PSA bought a Genamint, which is actually kind of interesting. I'm going to probably do a video on that as well, but we'll have a chance to talk about that a little bit tonight. And in the vein of the auction houses, PWCC created its premier auction, which has certain elements that are going to seem eerily similar to another auction house that we'll talk about a little bit here and there. So we'll definitely have at least a couple of topics to touch on, and then whatever else you guys want to touch on as well. So we'll definitely do that. So anyway, so just to get off the top. So Bobby, anytime you want, just nod or give me a signal, and I can put you on. So you'll have to let me know. All righty. Good evening, Bobby. How you doing? Nope. I thought you had the process figured out. You had it down to a science. It's like, nope, back to the chipmunks. So anyway, how's everybody's week gone? It's been good? Hobby-wise or otherwise? Good weekend or good week so far? Or any interesting things going on towards the weekend? Obviously, things are pretty quiet. I would say in Southern Ontario, a lot of us don't have a lot of plans as far as the weekend is concerned, but it is what it is. Hobby-wise, though, it's been a good week. I did record my pickups video for the week, so that'll come on the channel tomorrow. I'll set it up so that it'll appear around midday. So it should be pretty good. So good evening, Yannick. Thanks for joining in. All righty, let's give it a try here. All right, Bobby, what's up?
Are we good?
You are good now.
There we go.
How's the week treating you?
Oh, it's an interesting week. Very busy. Did some more research beyond the research. Some things just don't settle with you on certain issues, so sometimes you research them again. Mm-hmm. And I came across something interesting. We can talk about later now, whenever. It's up to you.
No, for sure. We can definitely, if you want, if you found something interesting you want to chat about, we can definitely do that off the top. I jotted down a handful of topics, which I'll touch on a little bit later on, just to expand on a couple of the things. But it was nice. This week they gave us a couple of things to talk about. So it's always nice when they got a couple of things going on. Because I do think, it's funny though, because I was listening to a lot of the videos about a lot of the topics, and I'll elaborate more in a couple of minutes, but I enjoy that a lot of folks draw like the very similar conclusions, which is fine. That's normal. That's to be expected. But a lot of it is like, it's not going to change life today. Just, we can talk about the potential, but it's always the potential. Like if things continue, then yes, sure. But this, that, and the other thing, it's not going to change anything today, tomorrow, or a week from now. It's going to take a little while. Yeah. So it's always, so what did you find out?
I was researching York peanut butter in 1960-61.
Okay.
In March, in the playoffs, they started a hockey glass promotion. Pictures of all the different players of Toronto and Montreal players on glasses. There's about 20-something in the set. Mm-hmm. So I was, and then there came out a second series, and there was only 4 Leafs, 4 Canadians, and 3 Detroit. So very small production, and they added Detroit, but it was a different manufacturer. The first year was Federal Glass. Okay. The second year was Dominion Glass. F on the bottom for Federal, D on the bottom for Dominion. So it was really interesting. I was kind of looking through the ads, trying to find, because we've never found ads, but there's only one ad for the 60-61 glasses, 2 kind of ads really, and nothing in 61 too. Never found anything. So I'm sitting there going, in the beginning of 61 too, York Peanut Butter does a hockey card promotion. Mm-hmm. And I'm figuring, why would they run the glasses and a big, large hockey card promotion with albums and all these other things that's going on? It didn't really make much sense. So I'm figuring, what happened there? Something must have happened. Why is there no advertisement at all when they advertised like crazy for the cards, but no glasses? Mm-hmm. So
was it like an experimental test issue? Because that always tends to be the way when it's something random. It feels like there's a lot of test issues and things that are like limited area kind of production and stuff like that.
I like your hypothesis. However, I'm going to go in another direction.
Sure.
So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, it's pre-production. They get ready for the playoffs for these first glasses that come out in 60-61, come out in March of 61. Mm-hmm. They run out of certain players like Beliveau, the popular players, Mahovlich, Horton, Keon, all the new popular players are on those teams. So they probably ran out of those major players, and they're going, hey, give Federal a call and see if we can order some more. Well, Federal's working, probably making other productions, going, we can't make anymore. We made those like 4 months ago for you. You know, we can't just stop what we're doing now and do that. So they probably went to Dominion and said, hey, could you guys do a small run for us? We need to extend it. So they redid Beliveau. They redid all the ones that seemed to were sold out, and a couple ones that were missing from the first series.
Okay.
A couple players, and so very small run compared to 20 something, and then you have, 12 other glasses only added for a second series, and very random too. Just all the top stars for the most part. Actually, not even all the top stars. Some Talbot and a few other ones. So that's what I think is it was an extension or a continuation and a late call. They did a lot of advertising. They did dump in streamers. They made up these things to look like the time clocks for Maple Leaf Gardens and the Montreal Forum for advertising pieces to sell. So they put a lot of money into that. And if they ran out, I'm sure they wanted to extend it. Yeah. That's the only thing. So I think I'll be changing potentially. There's no hard evidence, but I think the theory is pretty sound considering the amount of advertising and what they did.
Okay. No, I think it makes sense to go in the direction of a lot of stuff where because in that era especially, a lot of the decisions made, and that goes back to like in baseball and tobacco era, a lot of people are like, oh, what happened with this? It was practical. Somebody was there making a decision on the fly, saying like, oh, this happened. Yeah, do this to fix it, or do this to modify it. Or it wasn't like this calculated thing where they're like, oh, it's as part of the plan. We did this, that, and the other thing. Mm-hmm. Now the baseball card side of the hobby always has a lot of that. Like in the tobacco era, it was a ton of like, okay, why is there a Ty Cobb back?
Yeah.
Why is there only one? Why were there other players? It's a million and one questions, because you're like, well, okay, sure, maybe somebody got an idea. Why did they only make one? Why did they not create it with other players, or this, that, or the other thing, or whatever? And there were 3 different Ty Cobbs in that set. So could there have been one for each one? You can speculate, you can guess, but it becomes this whole thing. But a lot of it was practical. It's like somebody made a decision and they said, and that goes also for the other backs. It's like, okay, so why are there 200 of players with this back and 300 with this back and 500 with this back? Piedmont's the most common. Sweet Caporal is the most common, but they've got the biggest checklist. But these other ones have, so what was the rhyme or reason? How did you decide? Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's like somebody made a choice somewhere, made a decision, and that's what they rolled with.
Yeah. No, that's a T206, right?
Yeah. And that,
yeah. Aren't the Piedmont's harder?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Some of the backs are significantly rarer. And when it comes to some of the parts of the player check, because it was such an expansive checklist, something like Southern League players generally appear with certain backs. Mm-hmm. So there is a rhyme or reason to it, but it's one of those things where it's been kind of lost to the sands of time, and then people have had to reconstruct it. I use the example because it's very similar conceptually to what you're talking about. Somebody made a call. There is a reason for it, but you kind of have to work backwards and be like, okay, so why would they do this? In this case, to your point, maybe it's just that they couldn't produce any more at that one, so they went with the other one to be able to produce something. So in the same vein, why did you pick certain player selection, stuff like that? A lot of it comes down to somebody made a choice, and they're long since dead, and we can't ask them.
Well, like the C56, you have the C50, C56, the Newsy Lalonde, the number 37. Why did they do 2 cards of him? Why is there? They did 36, but 37th is the extra Lalonde. But they did do 2 other players twice in that set too. Mm-hmm. So either they didn't have a final pitcher for him, which is my assumption, and they started continuing going, hey, why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep on? And then the easy out is it's a salesman sample. That's everybody's. And that's just a lame excuse for a lot of things. There was salesman samples in the past, very few. A tobacco company like that, I don't think they had salesmen because you had cigar shops on every other corner. Yeah. So what salesman is going to go out, what do you want today? It's just,
yeah. So some of that product didn't really require a lot of sales that way. You didn't really need a lot, not to sell the type of product where they were going to buy the product anyway. So it's one of those things where it's like
it's smoking. Yeah, it's not like it's eating. It's
it's an easier sell, especially at the time. But the thing is, even and even later on into the golden era for baseball was the 50s. That's the golden era later on. But even something like the 54 Bowman set, which I've talked about before, there's 2 Jim Parcells. Why? Because number 66 was supposed to be Ted Williams. The card exists. You can get that card. So for me, to consider the set fully complete, I would need a 1966 Ted Williams, a card number 66 Ted Williams, because it exists. It was released. There are copies out there, but most of them have 66 Jim Parcells, who is also later on in the same set. So there's 2 Jim Parcells.
All number 66.
No. There's a 66, and then there's one later on in the checklist. So the other one was supposed to be the Jim Parcells card, the only one. Oh. And then last minute, somebody goes, "Oh, we have to pull card 66. Get Jim Parcells and put him in that one too." So there's 2 different card number Jim Parcells in the set, in the base set.
Gotcha.
And then there's also a 66 Ted Williams, which is the one that was never supposed to see the light of day, but it exists.
And why was it not supposed to?
Contract. He had an exclusive contract with Topps in 1954.
Yep.
So Topps used him twice in 1954. They did it intentionally. They made him the first and I believe the last card in the set to kind of really dunk on Bowman that they had him an exclusive contract.
Buggers.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, the great irony of that is that they were unfortunately Bowman wasn't in a position to really take advantage of really mocking them, because in 54 and 55 they had an exclusive contract with Mickey Mantle. Because there is no 54 Mickey Mantle and there's no 55 Topps Mickey Mantle. So he doesn't get another card until 56. So it's kind of what they were doing. They were doing their back and forth, their little war going on and through the mid 50s. So, but stuff like that happens.
Yeah. And that's sort of the fun part of the hobby for me, is finding that out. I was just kind of to relook to see if there was an ad.
Exactly.
And then I start putting things together in your head and you start going, why would they have the cards starting right at the beginning of the season and run right to the end of the season? At the end of the season, they're offering free albums, like take them free, where you had to send 25 cents in prior and through the season to do that.
Right.
Why would they run glasses and not put the glasses in all the ads? And then I looked into 62.3 even the next year looking for ads, because usually in the old newspapers, you have products advertised. It'll say, York peanut butter, 35 cents for 1 pound jar. And then above it, it'll have this little line that says NHL hockey players inside or something like that. There's usually a little byline there. And there was nothing at all. So I think I found it doesn't change anything. It's not a rookie year, but it's historically significant, I think, at this point. I'm pretty sure that's where Dominion comes in, and using another producer, that happens with certain things.
Yeah, so. I think it's fair. I think it's one of those things. Anything that can be added to the scholarship of especially when it's obscure stuff, because then what's going to happen is if somebody down the road needs to look up that set, that's where that piece of information comes into play. Because it's the reference materials, right? A lot of us don't think about reference materials until we need to look up something obscure. Yeah. Because it's not like you're going to know that off the top of your head necessarily. Somebody has to do the research and the scholarship in order for you then to be able to reference it. So that's why you throw some of those books up on the wall and be like, okay, now here we go. In this case, it'll be digital form, but same idea, same principle. Have a reference library, so to speak.
And the funny part about that is 2 glasses in that set are considered short prints. They're very, very hard to find, which is the Talbot. He's not really a big star or anything, but he's a $1,200 glass just for the one glass, where most of them go for $100 to $300 to $400. Depends. It's Sawchuk and Howe, and then a few other ones go.
Were they actually made out of glass, or was it like porcelain? Or
yeah, I can do a screen share and just show a few people if we can.
Sure. So while you're doing that quickly, I know it's been about 10 minutes, so I apologize, Josh, but good evening as well. So I know you folks have been kind of listening to Bobby and myself chat, but just so we're clear, I did mention off the top, I am going to talk a little bit about PSA buying purchase at Geniment, because I think it is interesting. There is some downstream implications. It won't be instantaneous, but we'll talk about it a little bit. PWCC is creating a premier auction. I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, because I think that is interesting, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I will get to that. And the other one was I did a video about it this week on the channel that some of you may or may not have seen. It was just related to CSG raising its prices, which was not shocking. There's no shock factor to it, and that's what hopefully I emphasized clearly in the video, was that, no, it makes sense because it's another shoe to drop after PSA pulled back a lot of its submission levels and left only the high tiers. We knew that volume was going to get pushed, maybe to Beckett. We don't hear anything from Beckett because they're always quiet. They don't say anything. We don't know if people are rushing them. We don't know if they're chugging along. We have no idea. We assume they have a backlog because they had a backlog and they haven't said anything about clearing it. We assume they have it. We know SGC tripled its price, so we know that already happened. We know HGA is basically slammed. Nothing's happening there. So we knew that it was a matter of time. I did hear, I think I mentioned in the last live stream last week, CSG was starting to get a bit of a backlog. So we've got that. But at the same time, it was funny to me because as they were starting to get a bit of a backlog, I'm like, okay. And I heard them admit that on a podcast. And as soon as they said that, I knew it was a matter of time. We will 100% hear a little bit more from them until they're able to take care of some of that volume, as long as people want to send stuff out. So I can see you're moving around there, the different pages, Bobby. You let me know when you find it. Is this the one you want to show?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to show a couple. So
Okay.
here's the
Okay, hold on. I'm
promotion.
going to put it on the screen there. Hold on.
Sure.
Yep. Now you're on.
So here's the promotion, free autograph hockey star picture. So you can get a photo or a glass, and it has every different star on it. So there's the glass. So that'd be a Johnny Bauer. It'd be a Carl Brewer. So here's the write-up, actually. This is in Canada Packers. This is a Canadian grocer. So this would only go to the retailers. This wasn't a public advertisement. But they tell you all about it starting, when it starts, the Maple Leaf in the Canadian teams, 18 tumblers in the set. I think there's a couple more. But advertising in French, in English, the newspapers, dump bins. They're doing everything they can for this promotion. Mm-hmm. Doug Harvey. And then on the back, it has a full picture of the player. So that would be Frank Mahovlich there. So the big M. And then they had a referee signal too. There's Jacques Plante's back. Well, front and back of Jacques Plante. So they're really nice glasses. These are filled with milk, so you can't really see through them.
Okay.
So these are, and they match the scenes of the photos that they offered on the back, as you can very well see the way they did things.
Okay, so they have a corresponding photograph they offered as well?
They did, yes.
That's actually a good move, though, because then it's like, hey, you can have the side by side and be like, hey, that's kind of cool. Okay.
Yeah, they were pretty smart with their promotion. And then on the back, they would have a little infractional referee signal, and they all changed accordingly. So, which was kind of interesting. And then in the second year, so then I better go to the final here. So then they add a new Frank Mahovlich. Now these glasses are a little bit lower, and it's by another manufacturer. The colors are a little lighter and a little different, obviously different manufacturer. So they redo Frank Mahovlich. They redo Gene Beliveau, the top popular stars. They add Del Vecchio. And there's the Talbot. That's the hard $1,200 glass right there. No special star, but in a last-ditch run, hey, let's throw Talbot. We missed him in the last run, so why don't we add him in there?
What's interesting though, quickly, just as you've been showing these,
yes,
I'm surprised know how, and I'm also kind of surprised. So that's the first one that surprised me a little bit, but the second one that does not. Okay, so there's Gordie Howe. Okay, so I was wondering about that because you didn't show any in the first run there.
Well, I don't have them all pictured in here,
gotcha.
But I have. There's Howe, Sawchuk, and Del Vecchio for Detroit. They only did 3 Detroits.
Yeah. Okay.
And then they did another Horton. They did another Keon. They didn't do Dick Duff, so they added Dick Duff, which he was a major star back in that time period.
Did they include any? Did they include any Bruins or Blackhawks or anybody?
See, it's really interesting. Getting away from that, I would say. I'll just flick back to the screen there.
Sure.
Oh no! Stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll just drop in.
Okay. So it was really interesting right around that time period. Parkhurst in 1960, they got back Detroit from Topps. Remember?
Yeah. No, but I'm wondering if in this case, since it's glasses, did they have the same kind of restriction where they had certain teams and not others?
Well, this is what I'm trying to say is that, remember, Topps stole all the American teams away.
Sure.
And in 60-61, remember, because Parkhurst owned the licensing for the Leaf team and the Montreal teams. And then they got the Detroit teams.
Yep.
So that's why the other teams aren't really added, is because I think it was under Parkhurst licensing.
So this is a blanket license on all products?
I'm very much think so. Well, because of the likeness. Because then
Okay.
They'd have to go there. So I'm very sure, especially when Topps came in, and I think I mentioned this around the 55 cards is when they gave it up to Quaker Oats.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
tried because they lost some money. They said, "Hey, let's go through Quaker Oats. Let's sell that licensing. It makes a little
Yeah.
bit more money." I think it's the same thing with Sheriff coins.
Mhm.
The round coin discs, and because they're only the two teams again.
Yeah,
It's
that's
interesting.
the
And
reason I
then they
posed
come,
the question. That's an interesting wrinkle because that'd be kind of an interesting way to do it, where the league sells the rights, but then all of a sudden you got to go through. So it would be like the equivalent today. It would be the equivalent of somebody wants to make a hockey product, and it's like glasses or bobbleheads or something. Pick a random thing that is not cards, clearly not cards, and you have to go through Upper Deck. So
yeah.
that would be like the equivalent of what we're talking about, which would be very unusual, very kind of interesting.
Well, remember the deal that George Kennedy, who owned Parkhurst, had with Foster Hewitt was basically a handshake.
Mhm.
And he mentioned that in one of his stories that he told. And that in itself, I think when Topps came in, I'm sure there's something legally that had to be done, and I really believe that they stole Detroit away because of Kennedy's personal relationship with those teams, and that they didn't care much about Boston, or who did they have back then? Anyways, there wasn't really a big.
Yeah, it was too soon. It was too soon for Orr or Esposito or those teams. By the 70s, you would have had a much stronger case to include those guys because obviously that team would have been very popular by then, like
Sure.
some great players. But the one I'm thinking about now, since that's like 1960, probably still
Okay.
too soon. But within a couple of years, an
Mhm.
equivalent product probably could have included Stan Mikita or Bobby Hull.
Yeah.
So those names probably would have held some value for that. The Rangers really didn't have anybody for most of that period, so they could stand up anyway. Because if you look back on the original 6 teams, right, the Leafs
Yep.
and the Canadiens were stacked. Everybody knew that.
Yep.
Detroit had Gordie Howe, Terry Sawchuk, like they had some real good players as well. Some name
Ted
players.
Lindsay, yeah.
Yeah, like real good players, and they were three. There's 3 strong teams right there.
Yep.
Boston didn't really have anybody until you get to the Orr, Esposito, that era with that team. Then you've got something. But the Chicago Blackhawks, within a couple of years of this, have Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita.
Well,
So,
actually,
like,
58 they have Hall, right? So
Yeah, but they would. I don't know if he would have been as big a star right away out of the blocks in '58.
no.
But within by 62, 63, 64, I would say so. Yeah, within a couple
Top
of years
tier.
for sure. Within a couple of years for sure.
So it was Toronto, Montreal, but there's a reference here I'll use in crests. When they manufactured crests, there's a lot of crest in the 60s and 70s, especially the 70s, where the manufacturer will use the same crest, but it's under another name brand or 3 or 4. So they would get the licensing and they would sell it off to another brand or let them use it for a certain feedback.
Yeah.
So it was like a collective group, or they would try to make as much money from it as they could, because I have the same crest that's in 4 different manufacturers' packages within the same kind of time period. So you sit there and go, very much. So it's hard figuring all this out because it's hard to ask anybody. If you think of going back to 1960, see if somebody worked at York Peanut Butter or at one of the glass companies, and if they remember, they'd be probably at least 80.
Yeah, I would say at the bare minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did most of my call outs for companies back in the late 90s. So I did get to speak to quite a few people that I did get a hold of. I actually contacted them back in 99, York, and they didn't have anything. They were just bought out. They sold that division. They had nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's always been one of the challenges. I've referenced it before. I was a history student, and one of the things that, like I said, they had courses where they talked about basic historical scholarship, and they talked about the challenges of trying to put together some, because they needed you to they wanted you as a prerequisite for other courses. They wanted you to understand the underlying challenges of it. And the reason why that would come into play is something like what you're talking about, where you're interviewing people. What happens is, people get old and they die. It's like, and then the dead aren't going to tell you much unless they wrote something down. So you're gonna struggle. And even with that, then you're taking people, even if you're able to talk to them and they're in their 80s. Okay, how much do they remember? Do they remember accurately? Because so it's like, even if they tell you, it's like, well, it turns out they said this, and this about it. Yes, but they also said that the Kennedy assassination was done by aliens in the same conversation. So I have a couple of questions. I may have to consider how much
the aliens in the grassy knoll.
It's like, as it turns out, Kennedy personally ordered this, and that's why he was assassinated. It's like, So that's the connection you decided to draw. It's like, that's what he said. Maybe we don't need to listen to this man.
One good thing about the elderly is they do have good long-term memory. It's the short term that really kind of goes.
Sure.
So they, remember certain time periods in their life. So, and going back to that time period and trying to call people, and most of those companies, they've been bought and sold 4, 5, 6 times over at least, especially in the last 10 years, but more so, in the last 20, I would say. They're not even the same company anymore. I tried to contact Kraft, and then I had to go through this other company. Oh, General Mills. And then I went through 2 other companies. Then Mondelez ended up with them, and now they're still with them. Actually, now they buy up everybody now. Cadbury. So it's all under one umbrella. Most of the companies for chocolate or for whatever.
But that's what tends to happen, is that then the institutional memory goes, because as the people that work there leave, or they retire, or they die, or whatever the case may be, age, things happen. After a while, there's no institutional memory. That's the terminology there. So it's like, this company's been around for 100 years, but nobody around here remembers anything that happened even 20 years ago, let alone going further and further back, because they weren't around. This is their current business under this current subsidiary or this new version of even if it harkens back to the heritage, well, none of you were here. So none of you can speak to that. Yes, it happened. Yes, this building was from the, 1920s or whatever, but none of you were here, and nobody was involved. And that makes it a great challenge for sure.
Which, we're just in collectibles here, and cards and collectibles and knickknacks, whatever you want to call it. We are doing a service to Canada's industry historically. We are preserving the companies by default in a lot of different ways. Otherwise, if there was no collectibles, the companies be long forgotten. Most of them, a lot of them, not most of them, but a lot of them for sure. But a lot of them are anyways. But if you did produce something, it keeps you going. And
as long as the physical item exists and somebody asks the question, what's this, and who was this manufacturer X, that's a valid point. So I'll quickly touch on David G's point to talk about Andy Bathgate. I would say Andy Bathgate was definitely a name player for the Rangers, but that's the problem, is that that's what you're reaching to.
That's as good as you get. That's the best you can come up with, right?
Yeah, when I go to the Leafs, I can talk about a lot of Hall of Fame players that they had for a stretch. Obviously, the Canadiens and the Leafs had a distinct advantage. They had access to such a pool of talent in that point.
Well, the Canadiens had exclusivity to anything.
French Canadiens.
Yes, they did. Not Toronto though, but
absolutely. But Toronto was still able to build quite a powerhouse team with a lot of. So that gave them access to a lot of great players in that era. Detroit is kind of the anomaly in the U.S. where they were able to actually get some players, and
they were
at least be
very close to the border. So
but it's one of those things. Like in another situation, Gordie Howe could have been a Maple Leaf, and then that completely changes the context.
From Alberta, so is Bauer.
I think Gordie Howe is
Saskatchewan.
Yeah,
Bauer and Howe are Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Yes,
but now imagine you take that team who's already great, and then add like a Gordie Howe from the 1940s through to the 1970s. Because he retired in the 70s. So if he runs through he retired the first time in the 70s. So think even that run of almost 25 years before he retires the first time. If he had been in Toronto that whole time, it's like he's already a legendary player. We'll tack that on with the team that's already stacked.
I think Marleau just broke his record, didn't he?
Yeah, games played.
Yeah, games played.
The thing is, it's not like it's not like they would have needed him, but it just would have made it more obscene.
I think if he was with Toronto, he would have been a bigger star. It seems Detroit has really fallen with their team. I know in collectibles, Detroit items are very hard to sell opposed to a lot of other teams. So certain teams have a hierarchy, and Toronto is pretty much top for the most part. You get Boston with Orr, but Boston has dropped off and Orr has dropped off, except his cards, just in the diversity of collectibles that are out there.
Yeah, I would say though the biggest problem Boston has is that they're a historic franchise. But if we go back through this era that I'm talking about, Boston was just kind of there.
Yeah,
they had teams that competed, but it's one of the you go look at the Stanley Cup winners. You see a lot of Montreal Canadiens, you see a lot of Maple Leafs, and then sporadically you'll get some Detroit in there, although they had that huge gap, obviously, until the 90s Detroit teams came back and started winning again. But at least during the Gordie Howe era, there was a little bit of success there,
Yeah.
But But then Chicago got a couple of cups in there, but again, big gaps, huge gaps. So it's like they were only able to get in, and the Rangers,
Poor
famously
Rangers.
until '94, had such a huge long gap too.
Yeah, they did 50
it's
years
like-
over, I think.
Yeah,
Something
so it's
that.
like you get a cup, you get a cup. So it's not like none of them won, but it was like you get one cup each, approximately, maybe two, but then the Leafs and Montreal Canadiens just stacked them up to the sky.
Yeah.
And that was basically the era. So if you're looking at it from a person, it's like, okay, so if I'm gravitating to winners, I'm basically looking at one of two franchises for the majority of that era.
Oh, for sure.
Post Original Six, then it starts evening out a little bit because other teams get into the fray. You don't
Sure.
have as many dominant dynasties.
Of course.
Yeah. So here's
sure.
yeah. So you did win
Interesting.
the Hart Trophy, which very true. I'm totally with you. So here's a mead here throwing in. Sam Pollock was a hoarder of talent. Yeah, absolutely. So here, Montreal cheated and won their first cup in 1986. We're ignoring all the 70s.
Yeah, their dynasty.
Yeah, as a no, but in fairness, as a Boston fan, I can get behind. Where he's going
Oh,
with this.
Boston
I
fan,
can
I
get I
gotcha.
can get behind where he's going with this. I understand.
Which rivalry is worse, Boston Montreal or Toronto Montreal?
That's a fair question. I think that's a valid question.
Certainly is.
Yeah, the washed-up Montreal Canadiens player were set to play for the New York Rangers. Yeah, well, that was the thing. The Rangers, like in all honesty, and again, even when it finally came together with them, the '94 Rangers had a great team. They had a lot of great players on there, but they were led by Mark Messier, who
Messier, yeah.
had already established credentials. Like he was already an established winner, and then he was able to help get them over the top. But then that's 1994. So now, as we sit here today, that's closing in on 30 years ago.
Mhm.
So we're back to another gap. Like they had that huge gap, 1 in 94, and they fielded competitive teams for a little while there. And then when Gretzky came in there in the latter portion of the 90s, they were still like okay. They got to the playoffs and they've had some runs the last couple of years where they've been decent. But it's like, yeah, we're approaching 30. Like it took all those years for them to win one cup, and then it's been almost 30 years since that.
I know.
So it's like
So-
you're there.
Well, we can say that of the Leafs too, but I mean, actually, the Leafs shouldn't even have won in '67. If you look at the lineup of the players, it's like really wow.
Yeah,
Tough.
it's one of those things though. I think I can't blame them for a large chunk of that era is because, like I said, the talent was really stacked very heavily in favor of those Canadian teams at that time.
For sure.
And
for
like I
sure.
said, Detroit probably had the most competitive team in terms of sheer raw talent until Chicago started to get some great players. But again, like at best, we're saying now you got 4 out of 6, and then the rest
Mhm.
is Boston and New York.
Yeah.
For the rest
Pretty
of the
much.
original 6 era, they're just kind of there.
Yep.
So quickly, I'll make sure I can grab this comment. This is from a little while ago, but I want to make sure we got to
Sure.
get at least a reference to it. Ziggy Palfy registration. Yeah, the PSA registry. Ziggy Palfy. There we live the dream. So yeah, we can always get Ziggy into a historical discussion. But I did laugh because I think it was him as well that mentioned the Ziggy Palfy thing. It's like, well, there's not a lot of discussion to have. I'm for it. No. And here's the thing. I'm for the idea of having a set registry for a bunch of players. Why not? If somebody wants to collect and wants to put it together, why not? Does it cause us any problems? No. Put them all on. Absolutely.
Oh.
Let's have some fun.
You can get David, and he can start at Andy Bathgate.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like it's fun. I think the set registry should be treated as something fun. If it's something fun and you're doing it for fun, I'm completely in favor.
You're not doing it for fun. It's competition.
If you're collecting Ziggy Palfy set registry, yes, you're doing
then
it for
you're
fun,
doing
Bob.
it for fun.
You're doing it for
Dano
fun.
and Paul Fee, it's for fun for sure. I
Yeah,
get
we're
it.
doing it for fun. But yeah, there's some people that want to be competitive about it, but there's some of them that are
Sure.
obscure enough where you're not really competing with anybody. You're doing it because you feel like it.
True.
Yeah. So and I think PSA can definitely set those up. I think they have to have enough interest though. Like it has to be something where enough people ask and they're like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. We
Because
don't
for
care. You want to create some more cards? Sure. Why not?
Yeah, for them, the reason why the set registry is such a cash cow is it gives people an excuse to submit cards that otherwise wouldn't be that interesting to submit. There's a lot of them like, why would you bother? Unless you're doing a set registry set. There's no other reason.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's what happens with a lot of. I'll use an example of like the Ken Griffey Jr. Player registry. There's a lot of like 1992 Fleer Ken Griffey. It's like, why would anybody grade that? Set registry. There's no other reason.
No way.
Nobody
Yeah,
really
exactly.
nobody really needs that card graded unless you're doing it for the set registry. That's
Yeah.
it.
unfortunately, the registry is full of cards like that.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the smartest things PSA ever did.
Oh, for sure.
I have to give them their credit for that. So let me grab this one, guys. Two things, guys, as we chat. If there's anything that you guys would like to talk about, just put it in the chat and I can definitely look at it. No doubt on that. And secondly, as we go along, if you've got any comments on anything we're talking about, same thing. By all means, feel free. So David Chi here says, ironically, I do have a signed 54 Topps Bathgate. Hey.
That's
I don't have the wallet to be competitive with the set registry. It's all about my own fun. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think you've got the right attitude for it. That's a good thing. Okay, so let's talk about this one for a second, because this one is one that I haven't had the chance to touch on the channel, but I want to discuss it a little bit here.
I'm going to warm them up a little bit first.
Yeah. So let's talk about this one here. Okay, so this one is where PSA purchased Genamint. Now, I want to give credit where it's due.
What's it called?
Genamint. It's a piece of software.
Oh, great name.
Yep. Now what happens is, let me go through this a little bit here. I'm not going to read the article here, but I'm going to show it to you. This is from Darren Ravel talking about a couple of different things here. Now, a couple of things. I love when someone quotes numbers. Now, we'd have to check and see where he got his numbers from, but I like this. So first thing, when you read these articles, take it with a grain of salt, but also take a look where there's numbers and things related to it, because sometimes it's helpful. So Darren, literally in the first sentence here goes, as a 10 million card backup hit Card Grader PSA, PSA has never said how big their backlog is. Darren Ravel might be making up the number out of left field. I have heard this number thrown out there.
I heard something like that.
Yeah, he could be throwing it out there, or he could be chatting with some folks. I'm not going to assume, but I'm saying it's interesting when somebody throws in numbers. So I'm just throwing that in there. But this is speaking specifically with this. Now, one thing I'm going to say about this as well is that this plays very much into the idea of Nat Turner being interested in using technology to help them move forward. Now, what the Genamint software does is it basically gives high-res scans. And what was great, and I want to say it was Yannick. I'd have to take a look, but I received a comment in a message through Instagram where he directed me to a podcast. And I'll give you guys the name of the podcast so I can quote it if you want to check it out on your own. I always recommend, if you've got the time, check out the source itself. That way I'm not just trying to remember it, but I will throw it at you. The podcast is called, let me scan through real quick here, Grails. So it's a Grails podcast. It's from All 10 Insights. And what they did is they interviewed Nat Turner. And it was just on April 21st. So it was this week.
Oh.
Interviewed him directly about Genamint and the gentleman who owned Genamint, who is now part of this whole process. And what they were doing is discussing in a little bit more detail what it was that Genamint was doing. And I'll quickly read one or two things here because he quotes some numbers here. And what happens is, when a card comes into PSA to scan, using Genamint's technology, the computer will put up print marks and surface defects so that every card will be unique. So basically, it creates what they call a fingerprint of each card. But what really the big takeaway, so just to get it in front of everybody, the big takeaway for me right now is that they're basically, as part of this process with this technology, they're going to be scanning every single card that comes in going forward to build a database of images. Which are A, going to help the software do its job better, B, allow it to better be able to get all kinds of different products in terms of the different series and things. One of the things that it can do, and I've seen some demos of it, and there are demos online. If you look up Genamint on YouTube, you can see like a demo. It's kind of simplistic in what it is, what they're showing you. But conceptually, I could see this being a really good tool to help with centering, with edges and corners a little bit, basically just digital enhancement of it to help them be able to get a read on certain types of defects right off the bat. And Nat Turner made specific reference to what we would love is for this technology to help us be able to quickly determine trimmed to, undersized cards and ones that are like damaged in certain specific ways so that immediately we pull them out of circulation for grading. Because if they're don't meet minimum size requirements, or there seems to be some obvious trimming or something that it's able to pick up right away, well, there you go. It's immediately flagged, even before we get it in front of a person. Now, once it's time to grade, an individual is still grading it because there's some subjectivity to it. And it's still new technology and it's improving all the time. But that's where the database is going to help, because the more images they have, the bigger the database, the more data points they're going to have. So it's going to get more accurate as it goes forward. So it's going to be able to do more and more of the heavy lifting as it gets better. So that's kind of the thought process behind it.
I can see a bunch of guys getting together and going,
Hey, we should sell our program to PSA. Why don't we do that? Yeah, yeah, sounds good. Hey,
Yeah.
what are we gonna call it? Genemint. Sounds like Gem Mint.
Yeah. Now, originally, the guy actually talked about they actually wanted to do an app that was for people prior to grading. The original thought process of the company was to generate an app, and the app would allow people to do their own. So basically, do their images. They were actually trying to do it separate from the third party grading. But once it kind of went a little bit along, and Nat Turner started to kind of show some interest, and they talked back and forth, it became a lot clearer that the future, that if they were going to continue and really get where they wanted to go with it, it probably made more sense to basically combine forces and sell to something like a PSA where they could still do their thing. But obviously, it makes perfect logical sense as an application to work with third party grading.
Hmm,
Because if it's doing a lot of that work, that's how it's doing it. So, Garib
interesting.
Yannick, it's fingerprinting the card that goes through PSA. Exactly. So, now one aspect of it that Nat mentioned that is very correct is that as you start taking those scans, it also then gives you the identification by fingerprinting these cards, quote unquote. It
Hmm.
means that if a card that has already been graded by them before comes back and suddenly the dimensions are off, the thing can pick it up right away because they go, hey, card 15 of 100, we already graded this 6 months ago or a year ago. It was like this. Now suddenly the centering's different.
Hmm.
Well, we already have it on file. It immediately identifies it, realizes it's the same card, red flag goes off. Hey,
Yeah,
what the heck? So for the grader, it's like, you just give me a useful piece of information because I don't necessarily know. If I didn't grade it myself, how would I know that this specific one was already here?
true.
If the system picks it up though and tells me, hey, double check this, you pull up the scan and go, yep, that's the exact same card. And that looks different. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good sideline for PSA to divert people's attention away from the 10 million cards that are backlogged or whatever
Well, I
million,
don't
how
think it's
many
going to
they have.
distract them too much because they literally shut down services because of the backlog. It's not much of a distraction.
But the new news,
Sure.
makes people start to think highly of, oh, at least somebody's doing something,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, the thing is, right from the time of their purchase at that time, they said one of the idea was to get more technologies to improve the efficiency of it. Now,
Hmm.
one area though I want to make clear, and what's good about that podcast, the reason why I gave emphasis to it, is that at the bare minimum, their idea is to start utilizing certain things that it's going to be able to help with right away, starting the scanning right away to start building up that database that could be useful for the reasons that I outlined. But do not expect it to suddenly be in front of all the graders. They even emphasize that. We have a technology group now. We've hired a bunch of folks that are going to start working with this stuff to incorporate it in what we're doing. And we're going to make more use of it as we go along. But it's not a day one thing. We're not going to be able to flip the switch and all of a sudden it's active and now it's being used for everything.
It's a couple years down the road,
Yeah, it's going to
getting
take
it
them
all
some
fired
time.
up. Sure.
But the good news I would say is that it's an improvement, it's an enhancement, and it is something. A database like that should be available because PSA can use it for themselves to avoid the crackouts and somebody resubmitting something that's been altered. Because if you have that database to be able to see, wait a minute, you've already sent this card in, or somebody did, and it looked different before, and we've got the images to prove it. Those high res images can become very useful for somebody to confirm that and prevent that.
Oh, fresh bread said, mind blown. Must have overproofed.
Yeah. I would say that long, so I'll put it this way. In the same way, there's a lot of technologies in the hobby. Long term, the potential is great. And I think, and from the demo I saw, I can definitely see how it could be useful because it can take cards of different dimensions and adjust them to be. Where I really thought it was interesting was that I thought it did a pretty good job figuring out the centering, even on cards without the borders, which is where it could be super useful because it can help.
How would it figure out the centering on an
It looks
English?
for points. It looks for points on the card, as identifiers. Kind of what I mentioned before. It's that it looks for them to try to orient the card, and that's where the additional
Who sets
programming
the
and whatnot is.
points?
The points actually get set up.
There's hundreds and thousands of different cards.
Absolutely. But what happens is you scan them and it starts looking for all the different differentiators in it. It's the same way that I'll use an example. It's the same way that we've
Well,
got
doesn't it
software.
need some sort of template though?
Not necessarily,
No?
because there's already software out there that does photo enhancements where, so like for example, normally if you want to do something and come up with some kind of weird background or something, you need a green screen. So like if I wanted to pretend
Sure.
I'm on a beach right now, I put a green screen behind me and then the green helps you figure out and you do that. Well, there's software out there already that could take this room and put me on the beach even though I don't have a green screen.
Gotcha.
So it can scan what's going on here, figure out like this is Carlos more or less, and then what's around him is not Carlos. So then change this. And that's how, now it's
What-
not perfect, but some of them have gotten really good because you can take a picture of, you know, your backyard with the sky, and suddenly I can put dark clouds in the sky, or I can put a blue sky. It's like, well, how did you remove the sky without you tracing it outward? Well, actually, some of the software has gotten good enough to figure out that that is the sky.
But this is a sky measure 2.5 by 3.5.
It could, depending on how the image is took. If we shrink it down enough, I can get it to 2.5 by 3.5.
I think it needs some sort of marker
Very
because
much
with all the different cards, I don't see them balancing out. What they can do after time, it can learn to find out what the happy medium is. Obviously,
I think
Yeah.
what's going to happen is I think part of the thing with a piece of software like that is it's AI learning, it's calibration.
Sure.
The more images you scan, the reason why I say down the road, it's going to get better as we go along, because as it scans more and more and more things, it's going to suddenly have more reference points. It's going to be like, okay, so this card, this brand, this year has certain characteristics that are consistent. And as it gets more data points in there, it'll get better and better and better until a certain point. It'll like, okay, so now I'm pretty confident that's where the human QA is still critical. Just because it says it's 50-50, the person should double check that.
Yeah.
But as you confirm, yep, you got it right. Okay, perfect. Good.
will that be a value added service, or is it
I think
adding to what is it, CSG, adding the extra grades for extra price?
Oh, the subgrades? Yeah. I think Nat Turner's already laid I think down the road they could try, but I think Nat Turner's already laid the groundwork. This is why I like listening to what he says as far as when he talks about a future roadmap, is that he said a couple of things in that interview that I thought was very interesting. And one of them is that obviously the path in which what I just outlined about how the technology is going to get rolled in slowly. They're going to do certain things first, get the scanning going first, and then start adding more things as they get more of the software out, train people on how to use it, because they need to make sure they know how to use it properly. And as they get better at that, then it'll get rolled out and suddenly it'll help with that. It's not going to make your, 10-day submission into a 2-day submission. It's not going to fix that, but it'll help to
It'll take
give the
more
person
time though,
at the beginning when you're programming,
and more handling, because putting a card on a scanner in any which way you do it, the physical handling is another issue.
It can, but I'll tell you that Burbank does this where they scan a lot of their stuff. And they've got their different products that will let you scan a ton of them front and back very quickly. So that stuff exists. And if PSA gets their hands on something similar, because they're going to need good res scans for this to be any good. So they've got to have, that's why I say
600 DPI for sure.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you need certain things. So it's like software is good. Now you need the hardware to complement the software so that you can really get done what you're trying to get done. And then the graders are going to have their piece to do in this because they're going to have to contribute. The AI should not be making all the decisions. It should help supplement what you're doing. But if you can start picking off cards that are too small or that are trimmed, well, immediately that's a value add because it just saved you a little bit of time.
Yeah, I guess it'd be good because if the grader has the scan in front of him, he can always look at, any the issues the card has physically up close.
Yeah. And then you've got the card as well, and you've still got your traditional instruments. So the scan can supplement what you're doing.
Sure.
Something you can see on the scan that maybe you can't see with the magnifier or vice versa. That's why I say like the two should be a complement. As long as you're using both, it can help you be a little bit more effective.
Yep.
So it's a good piece of news in the sense that it's the start. It's step one of a process, but don't expect it to change life soon. Give it some time. It's going to take time.
Nothing in my life.
Yeah, but it is a step. It is a good step though, and it is part of what they needed to do. But the second piece that I got out of what Nat Turner was talking about as well in the same interview was that he actually went contrary to what I thought. Now, we'll see if he can pull it off. But he's saying he would like to get back to having the $20 level, which I was like, interesting. I was like, okay, seems like a bold move. I actually think it's a bad idea, but if he wants to do it for the set registry stuff, I get it because you do need that. You do need to have something like that to maintain the bulk level at that. But I'm like, that just feels like you're asking for consistent volume issues because you're not just going to keep hiring people, and technology will help to a point. but you don't want to keep getting slammed with huge volumes trying to put it back out the door. It's very difficult to do.
Might have just been talk to alleviate any pressures that they already have upon them.
That's why I'm saying I listen, and I make a mental note, and then I say, let's see what happens. But at the moment, the public stance is that he would like to bring back the $20 one. I don't know if business-wise that makes sense. I've presented why I would actually not do that, but we'll see if it holds true. It's going to take some time for us to figure it out, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure.
He did say that, so I listen to what he says, and then we'll see what he does. See, I put a tornado in the sky. That's right. Yeah, counting the pixels. So anyway, I wanted to present that one to you guys. There was a couple of PSA things first because I thought it was interesting. It's a piece of information to keep in the back of your mind. It's not going to change your life today, but down the road, as that technology gets better, I think it'll help with some stuff. And it could, anything that helps is good. Anything that makes it a little more efficient is also good. So anyway, that's fair. So that's the first order of business from that. Second thing, and this one's more straightforward, but we'll talk about it for real quick, was CSG increasing its prices to the shock of no one. Now, nothing complicated about that. We knew it. But there were two things that struck me. Number one was they gave everybody about a week to react to it, which I was like, if you're already kind of backlogged that you feel you had to increase prices, are you sure you want to give them a week? Because you gave them a week to set the thing up on the site so that you can print out basically the invoice with the cards that you're doing. And then they say they will honor the price if you get it to them within a month of that deadline. So the printout has to be ready to go. No, it's very fair. It's exceedingly fair. It also feels like a recipe for getting slammed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's like, you've given me a week. If I rush right now and prep a 5,000 card order and send it to you, it's like, I just dropped this gigantic bomb on you. It's like, oh, by the way, if I'm not the only person doing that, or I'm a bulk submitter who sends you 1,000 card order, 1,000 card order, 1,000 card order, and this one sends 1,000 card order. And it's like, wait, so your plan is to get immediately crushed. And then the second part of it was the bulk price. Yeah. The bulk price was $8 a card, 50 card minimum before. But after the price increase, it's $12 a card, 50 card minimum. I'm like, that's not going to slow anybody down. $4? Like, that's
double.
Now, that's without the subgrades. The subgrades is $10 more. But if you're really submitting in bulk and you just don't care and you're just trying to get as many cards in there as possible, the difference between $8 and $12 is nominal. It's almost nothing.
They need to add the subgrades as a standard thing that they do. They really have to understand that. I think that's so important, and it keeps consistency with their holder looks, design. And it's a value-added service. It really is.
Yeah.
You want to come into this market from zero and go forward. That's a great thing to add. Whereas Beckett adds it for free, but that's Beckett. What are you doing that's different? Or
Beckett doesn't add it for free though.
Didn't they?
They charge a little bit. It's not. I don't think it's $10. I think it's a much smaller number.
Wasn't
but it is
free
a couple
before?
extra dollars. It was free initially, I believe.
Yeah.
But they have the last couple of years they have charged for it.
No, it's been a long time since I've sent a Beckett order in.
But regardless, though, I do agree with the idea that it's like, well, if you're going to have it, just add it.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, let's assume we include the subgrades. Okay, so $18 versus $22. If you were willing to send it 18, are you suddenly discouraged from doing so with 22? Not really. No.
Depends on what you're sending in, I guess. But yeah, I get it. It's marginal.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, if your idea was to increase prices to slow people down, I'm like, is $4 really going to slow them down? I question that. I'm saying I question it.
SGC's up there now, though.
Well, SGC tripled their price. So it was like, I would say that's a little more dramatic. If you're actually trying to slow people down, that is going to put at least an amber light in front of them, if not a red light.
Yeah. And plus, they still haven't gotten back to me.
Yeah. Right now, I would say that CSG decided to go with from green light to pine green light. It's still like, it hasn't changed enough, I would say. I would argue it hasn't changed enough. Even after the price increase, if you're sending in bulk, you're probably still going to send in bulk. So it's like, if you guys are starting to get a bit of a backlog or you felt the need to even adjust the price, you might end. I'm curious, for me, strategically, so the two pieces in concert. Number one, you gave them a window where they can suddenly hit you quickly under the old price. But then even after you adjust the new price, the new price isn't high enough to really change. If someone is inclined to send you 100 cards, okay, it's $400 extra, totally with you, but you would have paid 1,800 before. So 1,800 before, 2,200 now. Okay, maybe you send 80 then. You know, but that's not going to make a big difference in terms of you're receiving volume. It's not going to change that fundamentally.
No, and they're sending it in for, you know, to hit a home run on a few cards, and what they get on one card will pay for that over and over
it's totally
again.
worth
They
it.
don't have to worry. Yeah.
If it's still worth it to you, if you think it's worth it to you, that's not going to dissuade you.
Well, they're playing the law of averages, so usually you win on that end because the little extra they charge you, you can make, you know, 50 times whatever on the card sale if you get a 9 or 10 on certain cards. So
that's fair. Yeah. So for me, those two things in concert, I would question if that doesn't mean that they're going to see another price increase. I would be shocked if maybe we don't have this conversation again in a month. Oh, by the way, guys, CSG is now $30 a card. Or 35 or 40, or maybe they don't do the bulk submissions for a little while. We'll see. We're going to see. We're going to test their capacity, because if they're starting to see an increase in volumes that are testing their capacity, I don't think this is going to change anything. I think they might have just given everybody the green light to be like, yeah, send a bunch. Okay.
MNT has some included, eh?
Here's the thing. Good for them. The original issue stands with MNT. It's MNT. Like,
enough said.
Yeah, like, no, but I'm not saying it. I'm not saying I can be mean when I want to be. This is not me being mean. This is me just stating as a statement of fact. As a statement
facetious.
Of fact. This is me just stating simply as a self-evident fact. MNT is MNT.
Yep, mint is mint.
Yeah. And Jeff says, and good evening, Jeff, by the way.
Wow.
Beckett subgrades additional 15. That is pricey. That is quite
it's like, we'll look at your card, but if you really want us to really give you what we think, then we'll write it down for you for $15.
Well, I can imagine if somebody wants to send in a bunch. Let's put it this way: if somebody, I think Beckett's too expensive for this myself, but I'll give you a scenario. Let's say I, for whatever reason, really love the Beckett slabs, because they are pretty large kind of slabs. If it looks very protective in terms of the size of the slab. And let's say I would like to have personal collection cards in it. Maybe I don't care about the subgrades. Saving $15 is pretty appealing. But I do think they're kind of expensive anyway, so it's like $15 one way or the other. I don't know if that really matters. And if I do intend to sell, well, then I'm actually hurting my secondary value. And if it's a high-end card enough, I will lose more than $15 by leaving it out, because it's going to leave someone to question, why did you not pay the extra $15? What are you trying to hide?
Exactly.
So it's
like, I can see the grader sitting there going, oh, why do I always get the subgrades?
Yeah.
Because it's like an extra service that they have to do.
But here's the thing. I'd have to ask a Beckett person this. I would bet you they have to put the subgrades in every time, because it's a calculation. It's based on the number. So there's an algorithm. Like,
there's not a guy going 7.
No, the thing is, when you do, the person who's doing that is the one figuring out the subgrades. But when the final grade, though, is based on the subgrades, because if you got, let's say, a 10, 10, 10, and the corner's completely chopped off, so you say corners is a 1, then it can't be more than a 1.5, even if all the other 3 are 10s.
But it has 3 10 subgrades.
Yeah, but it's not an average. That's the thing. No, it's not an average. It's not a... Whatever the lowest is the key factor to this, but the other ones do matter, because if the other ones are exceptional and this one's still pretty good, because if you got 10, 10, 10, 7, I think they can give you a full grade bump on the lowest. So you could get an 8.
Reminds me of Joe's cards that he has that are trimmed, but they're nice looking.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though, is that
kind of we'll take it.
Yeah, but there's a big difference, though, between something that is like a 10, 10, 10, 7. Maybe the corner got nicked up at some point. Well, it's a 7. But as an overall card, centering's perfect. Edges are perfect. Surface is perfect. That's still a nice card. It's not a bad card. So giving it an overall 8, that's not offensive to me. But it can't be an average, because for the reasons that I just outlined, it can't be. No. Now, if it's all 9 5s, well, then it's easy math. We don't have to.
There's no math involved.
Yeah, it's like they are all identical subgrades. Well, then give the overall grade the same. Done.
True.
Piece of cake. But I would bet then, because of that algorithm that I just outlined, I wouldn't be shocked if they put in the subgrades every single time, whether you pay for it or not. Which begs the question, to your point, why not just include it? Because you're probably having to do it as a part of the process every single time.
Well, so they're charging $15 to go print.
Basically, that is my belief. That is what I believe. I
That's
don't think their process changes
that's
because
a
as a
hell of
grader, why would
Good
you,
business.
as a grader, what do you get an indication saying, okay, so we're doing subgrades for this one there, Bobby? No, you do the same. You do the same job every time. The person who does it is on the other end
Mhm.
because if the subgrades are already in the computer, you can
Yeah.
just hit print.
Yeah.
So basically, you're paying for somebody to press a button,
Basically.
which seems ridiculous.
And
Like-
the ink.
Yep, exactly. Which seems ridiculous, but yeah, I would wager, and we'd have to ask a Beckett person this, and this might be something worth asking. I don't think you guys change up your process at all, whether the subgrades or not. I think it's the exact same process either way.
Gretzky.
Which year is that?
Well, I believe it's late. Well, 89, 90 to 96 is when the Future Stars ran. Now, the Future Stars was a competition. You could enter a competition if you were in the top tier of. You could win a chance or a trip to go to Gretzky's hockey camp. You could win a camera and a few other things. You know,
Okay, so this would have been LA Kings Gretzky then.
it would be yes at this
Yes.
time.
Okay, for 89, 90, yeah, it has
Yeah,
to be.
but it was a Canadian promotion, regardless. But this thing it's very interesting. These are very hard to find because it's old stock from
Mhm.
that time period. Has a roll up the rim on it.
Okay. So what was okay? I don't remember this. What was the first year that Tim Hortons was doing it?
Oh boy,
It has to be a long. It's a
great
long
question.
time ago. It has to be a long time ago now.
I think it was mid '90s.
Yeah, I feel like it had to be something like that. It's got to be well over 20 or 25 years. It's got to be something like that.
So these cups are really, really rare, and I haven't rolled up the rim on this, so I think I'd like to do it online right now.
Mm.
We could roll it up and see if you win. See all the prizes you could win. You could win a pin, a puck, a VHS tape.
It would make me. It would make me so happy if you rolled up the rim and it says free double double. Wait, what? Wrong thing.
A donut.
It's like
So
as long
win
as
a
you get
trip.
as long as you get a Boston cream. Actually, Bobby, question.
Yeah.
So if you want to roll it up, go for it by all means. But question for you. All right. So Timmy's, what's your donut choice?
French. Well, they don't call it French cruller anymore. It's a honey cruller. But
Okay.
apple fritter probably, or blueberry fritter after that.
Yeah, Carlos Senior is an apple fritter guy. He enjoys
Hmm.
those.
Yeah, sweet tooth, of course. You go
Yeah.
for the sweetest things, right? Now I got a sweet tooth, so.
Yeah, I have it as well, but I am a fan of the Boston cream. I do enjoy them.
Okay, all right. So
All right,
how
so
am I
you gotta
going
roll up?
there we go.
Yeah, there you go. You got
I've never done this, so I don't know
Alright.
how this works. So we're gonna. Oh, here we go. Jeez, it's weird when you got to do things backwards. All right, that's
it. No
better.
worries. I can tell you that that looks right side up on our end, so you're good.
Yeah, I can see it now. Oh, the old plastic.
So by the way, guys, so this is basically a 30-year roll up here. We're gonna find out if Bobby won anything from 30 years ago. In the same vein, though, for any of the topics we talked about or anything else you guys want to chat about, you just have to put it in the chat. You have to let me know.
Okay,
And
so
assuming you're there, so if you're feeling chatty, feel free. Otherwise, you can keep watching as the man rolls the cup. All right, so I can see it's red, but I can't read what it says. Is it try again later? Or please
It
try
may.
again?
it may. It says sweepstakes.
Mhm.
So I guess you can enter. It says push tab in. Push tab in. Oh, okay. Tear tab off. Your prize message underneath. Sweepstakes.
Should it be in front of you? Seems kind of odd.
Push tab in. Oh, see, I think it's the. It says push this tab in. So why would you have to push the tab in to roll up?
I'm surprised it's not like see-through.
And
or
it
something.
says tear tab off.
Yeah.
And then it says roll up the rim to reveal your potential prize. To claim your prize, complete the game cup entry form at the counter.
I would be curious. I'd be curious if the tab doesn't come off. Is the tab perforated?
No, it looks like it may, but I can see through it anyways.
Like I can see right through it. There's nothing obviously hidden behind that.
So I think
Because
we
you
figured
wouldn't
out.
be
I
able to
think
see
I think we figured out the secret behind
the
it, Bobby.
secret behind.
It's like no one is allowed to win because no one understands how
I
to
don't
play the
get it.
game.
I don't get it. I thought it'd be a little bit. So the sweepstakes. So you go up and you fill out a sweepstakes form. So you didn't get an instant win, obviously. So you know,
I see now why this probably didn't last that long.
yeah. Obviously, Tim Horton learned a few lessons from this one, maybe. So
I was gonna say, and they're hardly perfect, but at least as they say, it's a step up. So Jeff, there's no Dunkin' Donuts in Canada. There's a few
Yes, there
franchises.
is.
A Dunkin' Donuts?
oh yeah, they've been up
Where?
here for a long time. Well, I don't know. Oh, I don't know if there's any left. You're right. I think
I was
there's-
gonna say, like, I don't recall one. I'm sure they tried.
Oh no, they were here. I used to get them every morning when I
Really?
went 90. So 95. I
Okay,
know
so-
they were here for sure, guaranteed. I didn't like their donuts though, but I liked their coffee.
Well, they've tried. I know that a lot of the American franchises have tried. Let me take a look here. Oh
Yeah.
wow, okay. So hold on.
There's probably still a couple left.
So let's see. Here.
Stragglers. Like there's one John Anderson hamburgers left. I was just there the other day, and it's kind of funny. They were around in the 80s, late 80s. No, yeah, early 90s, and they were everywhere. Now there's one sole survivor.
Okay, so here it is. So yeah, so there were several of the franchisees. So you are correct. There were several of the franchisees that won a civil court judgment against the parent company for failing to adequately promote the brand in Canada. So they were
Yeah.
dissatisfied with that. So apparently in September 2018, after 57 years of operating in Canada, they ceased business. in
After
the
how
country.
many years?
After 57.
Wow.
Yeah, so apparently it ceased business when it refused to renew its franchise licensee to the few remaining stores left. All remaining Canadian locations were either closed or rebranded as independent businesses in late 2018.
Hmm.
That is
So they'd
interesting.
be independent Dunkin' Donuts.
No, ending they were rebranded as independent businesses. So I don't think they're allowed to use the brand anymore because Dunkin' Donuts still exists. You'd have to
Then
pay
you-
a licensee fee.
Yeah, but then you'd have to change your whole store, your sign, your
But you're still a
cups.
licensee.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Blockbuster was different because Blockbuster went out of business.
Yeah, they
So
went
you
out.
could still, so the handful that were left could still call themselves Blockbuster because
True, yeah.
who's going to fight you?
Nobody.
But a company that Dunkin' Donuts still exists. So if you tried to call
In the
yourself Dunkin'
States,
Donuts in
sure.
Canada, they'd be like, so pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Apparently Baskin Robbins is a subsidiary of Dunkin' Brands. I didn't know that.
Well, they're everywhere here. So.
Yeah, but no, Baskin Robbins is doing fine.
Mhm.
So, but I did not know.
No.
Okay. For some reason, I guess I never saw them. Maybe they were more heavily in Toronto.
I love my black cherry.
Okay.
One of my
Fair.
favorites. That's my favorite ice cream.
Interesting. I'm a mint chocolate guy myself.
Oh, you had to be.
Absolutely.
You're the guy. It's like chocolate bar. What's your favorite chocolate bar? Everybody, you know the person. If you say Big Turk, you're in trouble. Or if you say, I don't know, Bounty with the cherry, then you're really in trouble.
I was going to say that'd be a bold move. So my apologies, Jeff. For some reason, I do not recall the Dunkin' Donuts at all. But the answer technically now is no. But at one point, yes.
I've given it historical confirmation.
Yes. And apparently it was around for a long time, and I completely glossed over it. Like, I do not remember them.
They were a very mellow roast, very light. I just started drinking coffee in 1995.
Okay.
And that's pretty late because I was never a coffee person. But I started working for a coffee company, so I had to start. So I had lots of sugar and lots of cream in it. Don't worry, it's just to get. But you slowly, ease back off of that, and you get a little bit more better with your coffee choices. I remember someone here said they drank. What was it? Kopi Laku. That was the first coffee they drank. I thought that was a joke or something before when I was talking about being in the coffee and what we drank before, because it's called the monkey butt coffee.
Okay.
You want me to get into it?
I would rather you did.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, it's I do find some of those American franchises that pop in from here and there to be kind of interesting, a little bit odd. There's some that you'll see though. Like I said, the Dunkin' Donuts one legitimately surprised me. I just don't recall seeing one. Maybe like I said, I suspect maybe it was more in I guess it would have to be in certain urban centers, things like that. There are other franchises like that that I knew were around. Like Krispy Kreme's did its thing, and Krispy Kreme's I can still see them around. Like
They're
still
back
come, for
actually.
sure.
They just came back and they opened a few in Scarborough here.
Yeah.
Very nice, well done, beautiful.
They've managed to hang in there though. Like
Upper
they had,
tier now.
yeah, they had their first little run where they did okay, and then they kind of struggled for a bit. But I guess they've hung in there long enough now where like they've developed pocket. It's so hard to get in that business. Like if you're not established, it's so hard to get in that business.
It's not even about their fresh little donut now anymore. They have such a variety of you name it, and but it's a sugar rush. It's just all amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, not there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, you walk in there, it's just like wow, 2 or 3 donuts, whatever.
Yeah, but I think that's always been kind of the thing with a lot of those restaurants where like now a lot of them, even Tim Hortons has their stranglehold on it, but it's not impenetrable. Like they sold that company a couple of times now, where like it's not really associated to the original. So now they're making it like a coffee house, and they started picking a bunch of random products, which is fine. That's okay.
Well, Starbucks has really put their foothold now that people are getting more into Starbucks. So
Yeah.
a lot more are opening. I'm just saying, more than I see Tim Hortons opening.
I think Tim Hortons hit a saturation point. There's only so much you can do. Like
Yeah, they were at critical mass for sure.
yeah. And to be fair, a lot of the products are just okay.
Yep. Their coffee is still good. It's still a great blend, but their donuts have suffered. And the sandwiches are just okay. A toasted bagel, how do you screw that up? You have to ask
They're
for
kind
it
of,
double
to be
toasted
honest,
just to
even
get it
as a
toasted
sandwich,
once.
even as a sandwich, they're kind of expensive. For what you actually get as a sandwich, it's kind of expensive for that size sandwich.
Yeah, so is Mr. Sub. So
I'd
where
rather
do you
if
get
I'm
a
gonna
good cheap sandwich at home.
Well,
Your-
I was
your
going to
mom's?
say a good cheap sandwich. I have to do it myself. If that's my desire. Yeah,
True enough.
I can live with Subway because I've got basically the combination of things that I want. I'm okay with it. But yeah, and I used to have like for lunch because a couple of places that I would go when I went to class and stuff, you had the Tim Hortons there. You could get the sandwich in there, and I like the BLT and stuff like that. But like I said, it's a fairly small bun. So my biggest thing is like, okay, I'm kind of hungry, and this bun is like, okay, this is like a good appetizer. When do I get the rest of the food? So I would usually get the potato wedges as well, and at least give me something else, at least a little extra.
Yeah.
But there's only so much you can do with that. And the potato wedges are also just kind of okay. They're not that great.
It's funny when they first came out with their like they had the McDonald's hash brown.
Mhm.
They had their own hash brown. It was round and it was horrid. It was just the worst piece of anything you had. And then they changed it, and it's almost identical to McDonald's right now. So now they're good, but they're never hot. Like anything you get from a drive-through, it's just not hot. It's been put in a tray and a bin at a certain temperature, and then they just pull it out. They cook it, so much in advance. And that's the sad part about fast food. It's horrible food, and it's a lot of money.
Oh yeah, basically yes. You kind of get what you kind of get. What happened? You traded convenience for a lot of time flavor and things. I will say though, the one thing that I will still have at Tim Hortons from time to time, but it's one of those things I won't go out of my way. But if I happen to be around and it's before lunchtime, I'll take a breakfast sandwich because I'm a big fan of breakfast. So that I like. I can work with that. But yeah, the rest of it is like I can take it or leave it, whatever. The odd ice cap here and there, but otherwise I have no use for them.
Mhm.
So here, did you see the multiple YouTube videos referencing the Pokemon Most Historical Sale by the Card Shop Show? So I think that's Mealy Pops, if memory serves me, Jeff. I have seen the videos for them in the sense that I've seen the thumbnails and stuff. I haven't checked it out yet. I know it's a Pokemon thing. I guess it's boxes. I could be mistaken. I think they're trying to sell. It's one of those things where it's like it's on my list of things where if I've got a little time, but right now my watch list is probably like 60 videos deep. Like it's a lot of stuff. So I probably won't get around to it unless I don't know if there's something interesting to it. If there's like a single big deal, it's kind of interesting, but I have no idea. I have
Most
no
historical sales already been documented. Actually, it was on the news. My wife called me and she said, "Come watch the news." They were talking about sports cards and eBay, saying that they've doubled their eBay Canada has doubled the sales of in sports cards in the amount.
I believe it.
And the way they talked about cards, it was just so impossible. Just the card has to be in excellent condition to get $100,000. It's like excellent condition to you is 5. It's not you're gonna get
But
4,000.
that would be great, Bobby. If this is true, this is a wonderful thing. Imagine what we get for Gem Mint.
No, But then all the people that they say go look in your attic, go look in your basement, go find cards, and so they're going to bring them to market and say, hey, this $100,000 for an X. You said 5X, then this is a 5. I need my 100 grand. Good
I
luck with
can't see
that.
anything wrong with that. And then you hand them a 100 grand bar. There's a chocolate bar called 100 grand.
I know.
You hand them that one.
I know every chocolate bar there ever was. Damn,
Nice.
it's my nemesis.
David G says here, favorite Canadian coffee is Second Cup. Not a bad choice. I will say I'm
They
not.
were good.
I don't drink hot coffee. I'm a cold brew coffee guy. I haven't tried Second Cups, but you know what I like from Second Cup? The Italian sodas. Love the Italian soda.
With the Brio Canoto?
Well, the
Or-
Italian soda is basically just it's basically they've got the syrups in the back, and then they've got
you
a
do
shelf of the
syrup thing.
syrups.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then basically I can't call it. It's not.
It's like a flavor added to the
It
coffee.
is a flavor added, but basically you've got carbonated water, and then you put in the flavor, and you can combine flavors. A lot of people don't, but you can combine some of those syrup flavors. Ask them to put a little bit of this one, a little bit of this one, and
Call it a
basically
swamp mix.
yeah, you can come up with different combinations which kind of complement each other. A lot of the berry ones will complement each other really well. Like it depends on what you choose, but or you can just give me the strawberry or the raspberry or this, that, or the other thing.
It's neat because nobody else really does that.
Yeah, it's refreshing, especially if it's a hot day or something like that, and you pick like a lime flavor. It's basically carbonated lime flavored soft drink, basically, and that's nice and refreshing, especially on a warm day.
What's the price point of that?
It used to be pretty reasonable. I thought it was like $3 or something like that. It might be more now. I would suspect it's probably increased in price, but it
Yeah.
used to be pretty reasonable, I thought. So if I went to Second Cup, I would usually grab an Italian soda because I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, Second Cup is actually really good. It's just they ran their business poorly. They had competition with Tim Hortons and Starbucks, and they just kind of fell by the wayside. They didn't have a very strong franchise operation.
Yeah. We still definitely still have some around here. Like they tend to be a little bit more spaced out though, especially
Yeah.
like they lost the coffee war, so to speak, but they're still around. Like
They'll be in the Dunkin' Donut area pretty soon, if not already.
well, I will say this, in one of the old buildings I used to work downtown, they had a Second Cup downstairs. Which was just surprising considering like they'd struggled to get those kind of locations. They got a location that normally would be like a Starbucks location. So considering Starbucks got every other location, whatever Tim Hortons didn't get.
It's funny, when I was a kid growing up, my dad would always go to Country Style. But there's still a few around, unfortunately. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they had the whole market all across Toronto and surrounding areas wherever you went. And then Tim Hortons came in and then they had coffee time, and they just kind of dropped all coffee to the lowest level of whatever. And the competition was on when we went through the coffee wars in the 90s.
But that's why I say like it's a very tough business to crack because the entrenched players, there's a lot of loyalty. Because I remember when McDonald's tried to get into the coffee game with McCafe, their whole thing was they basically they gave away a tons of cups of coffee initially to really try to sell. And there's, by the way, things in McCafe that I think are all right. I think I like some of their muffins and some of their pastry because that's how you sell people. It's like if the coffee is a big part of it, the coffee's got to be decent. But then do you have any pastries? Do you have anything that can go with the coffee? Something like that. You got to have it.
I went to McDonald's, maybe this was quite a few months ago through the drive-through, and I just wanted something sweet. I was going to get but their ice cream machine was down, so I couldn't get a little flurry. So I said, those donuts look good because they got these new donuts,
Like the mini ones?
I didn't know there were mini.
Okay.
It doesn't say mini. And you look, there's no depth perception on the ad there. And I went, okay, just give me 2 of those and just give me 2 of those. And then I got them and just like 2 little 1 bite, kind of like 2 bite brownie sizes. Like, what was this? They don't even tell you.
You got to make a second order, Bobby.
But they charge you enough that it costs the regular price of a regular donut. Like, and there was not those. I got one of the filled ones, and there was nothing in it. It was just like dust, and it's just gone. It's like a little piece of drop of jam. I think they had this eye tweezer just going. Beep, and that's how much they give you in there. It's just like, come on, where's quality? There's no quality left out there.
Yep. I got you. By the way, guys, I have no problem having this conversation because I'm enjoying it, and I will touch on the PwC thing in a couple of minutes, but we'll get to that. I have it queued up here. We'll get to it in a couple of minutes, but I'm having a little bit of fun. Why not? Like I said, if you guys have a topic you would like to discuss, you can put it in the chat. It's really up to you. That's on you. So Jeff here says videos were made by the Sasha T, so related to that previous one. Got advice for before buying the Charizard. Okay, so chronologic, this is before the Sasha T deal. Okay, that's interesting though. And the second sentence is the interesting thing for me. It also stars the guy who sold the car to Sasha T. Okay, good. Because I was kind of curious about that. Yeah, I'm. That'll give me a little bit more background. I still want to have a discussion about that deal in general. I think Joe, since he's out and about somewhere, he was over in California doing over in LA doing some stuff. So I'm not going to wait for him. I'm gonna construct the video myself. But if this has some background on that, I'll take it because I think it'll add a little bit of flavor to it. But I'm gonna have to get on it a little bit quicker just to do it because I think there's some value to some of the stuff. The deal itself doesn't matter anymore. Down the road, we'll figure out what it is. I'm still interested in the process. The process, though, interests me because I think it's indicative of the current climate we're going to see at card shows for the next while, for sure.
True.
So I think I think that portion of it is relevant more so than the cards themselves. But if I can get any background on the guy he was doing the deal with, that's interesting for me. So thank you for that, Jeff. He says the two were in cahoots. I admire the transparency, but they host some Canadian, it seems. All right, I'll look into it. I appreciate that. I didn't realize it was the case. I might have to bump it up my list a little bit and check it out a little sooner. $100,000 bar will definitely cover it. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to tell you about the Monkey Butt coffee anyways, because we're all on coffee.
All right.
Okay, so somewhere in Micronesia, wherever it is grown, or Africa, they pick the monkeys pick the cherries, which coffee beans are called cherries, and they eat the cherries and they can't digest the seed. The seed, coffee beans are actually seeds, but we'll just call them beans just to say beans. So it goes through their whole system, digestive system, and it kind of the acids of their digestive system change the bean a little bit. So they all, when they get rid of it, then there's guys who come over and pick it up and make coffee out of it. It's $175 a pound for this stuff. This is a real story, true story. So, and supposedly it has this very distinct taste because the enzymes from the intestines, that's Kopi Laku, I think it's called. Anyways, that's the monkey coffee.
I believe every aspect of this, but there's nothing in the food industry that could shock me at this point. There's no byproduct or anything that's like.
It's a great story, but it's a great true story. The only other best coffee that sells for $75 is Jamaican Blue Mountain because they have such a high ash count there, in Hawaii too, Kona. Those are the two best coffees naturally by themselves. Facts of coffee. There you go. And none of them have it at Tim Hortons or Starbucks or anywhere.
Right. Okay, so Jeff here has a little bit more background on it. So thank you for the background, Bobby.
No problem.
A piece of information you will not get in any other hobby stream. Okay, so Jeff here says the Canadian seller of a case. So this is the Pokemon case, I guess, because that was what they had on the thing there. Declared $1,000 value for customs. Yeah, I'm sure that'll work out well. The two received the package in a complicated manner and brag about how they hose the government. I wouldn't put that on tape.
Brag that. No,
I wouldn't put that on tape and record it. Things live on the internet forever, guys. Bear that in mind. They document the sale, hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million. I don't think it's a stretch to U.S. government move knocking on the doors. Yeah, probably. Could be. Cross the border or else be prepared to create a crazy fine and possible jail time. Yeah. I think, maybe this would be a good tip, a good #invest tip. Don't record yourself committing, customs fraud.
The guys who work at Revenue Canada, they're creepers, man. They're looking around, they're checking stuff, and all of a sudden they hear something, and you could get in trouble. They're lonely people. They're looking for things.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. When you make it easy, though, you kind of deserve what you get.
We're in a world of billions of terabytes of documents that they would have to go through, videos.
But it would take all it would take is one person who doesn't like the guy, who maybe it would take is one because he's a dealer. If maybe there's somebody who's done a deal with him that doesn't like him. Yeah. Hey guys, you might be interested in this. Here's a YouTube link.
If he ever got audited, and then, hey, what's this?
Well, that's the thing about running. That's the thing about running a brick and mortar business. You're kind of easy to find at that point.
Very easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those. It's one thing if you do it out of a suitcase and maybe try to run away. It's another thing where you record yourself with a brick and mortar business with a physical address, and then you're on the internet, on YouTube. Maybe don't share that portion of the information. Maybe keep that to yourself. Just saying. Anyway, so Jimaz says here, the jacket guy traded with Sasha T for the Charizard. Okay, got it. A little bit of context. Appreciate it. So good evening, Paul. Thanks for dropping in.
Jacket guy.
Yeah. The thing is, I swear I thought
You were
I knew
supposed to
what
look his name
was.
up.
I was trying to find it. I like even in the video, I'm like, I was looking to see. I have to look at it again. I have to watch it because usually they'll put like they'll usually put like their Instagram handle or something, and then I can kind of follow up with that. It gives me something to start with.
It
or
might be
whatever.
in the taglines at the bottom where they're
I
commenting.
wasn't seeing it in the description. I'm gonna sit
Really?
there and watch. Usually I watch the stuff at 2x, but you know what? I might have to sit there and just watch the deal at 1x and just see like, okay, show me what it is. It's not like it's in the middle of the video, like 5-10
Yeah,
minutes. It's not a
I
big
know.
deal.
No.
But let me watch it again slowly so that I can see if I can look the guy up. Yeah, they put it on tape exactly. So Deland here says, "You guys score any retail target? Couldn't not for us. No targets in Canada, at least not anymore.
Nope.
No Target in this side of the thing.
Target.
Yeah. Good old
It's a
Target.
fancy- It was in Quebec. That's when it was called Target.
Target. No, Bobby, it's fancy Walmart. It is Target.
Okay.
Listen, we don't slum it at Walmart.
Oh,
Target.
Target.
Like
Oh my
civilized
God.
folks. Like civilized folks, Bobby. Like civilized
course.
folks.
Yes, the aristocracy of society.
Well, I also like red. It's my favorite color, so I prefer it either way.
It used to be mine until Montreal Canadiens came into my life. So
Fair. Yes, jacket guy was the guy. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Yes, agreed. So there you go. Probably use PayPal or EMT and then to brag to the company. Oh, that's the other thing too. Depending on the payment thing you did, you basically created a paper trail as well. Not a paper trail literally, but like a digital trail.
it's there.
The money, you pretty much can trace the money. It's like not exactly master criminals over here. and it's such a dumb thing where if you're going to make so much money from this deal anyway,
Why would
just-
you worry?
yeah, just fill out the customs form properly, pay the appropriate taxes. It sucks. Nobody actually likes taxes,
No.
but it's such a dumb but then if you're going to do this thing, don't advertise. Don't like,
Please.
by the way, let me share, this thing that I've done. It's like, so that you can all watch me. Genius.
If you sell something in a major auction house in the U.S., the Canada Rev will find out if it's over 20 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I get pegged for customs for really stupid things, and we fill
And
it
you
in.
shouldn't really. But
But some of the stuff, the best part is that the people at the post office will literally be like, well, if you take off this thing, you can contest it. I'm like, if I have to contest it, why did you charge me in the first place?
Mhm.
Because it's like a lot of these purchases is like, okay, so if someone actually sends me, because I will sometimes do deals with, if somebody sends a care package, let's use an example. If someone actually, because sometimes we won't make a trade. Somebody will be like, hey, I have a couple of these cards that you might be interested in. I'll just send them to you. But then you fill it out. Now you can totally get charged customs on that. It's like, I didn't buy this. I also didn't know what was in it. So depending on what you put in the declaration, I get to pay taxes on that. Thanks. And it's not the person's fault. They're filling in the thing they have to fill in. It's got to be proper. But anyway. So just Target killed Zellers, which is true. They purchased Zellers to initially try their Canadian foray. I would say I read an excellent article. It's been a long time since I read it, though. I read an excellent article that outlined the failed launch of Target in Canada and outlined a lot of the reasons why they speculate that it had trouble. I would say the biggest problem, though, is that they were overly aggressive. They didn't realize that Zellers is a very low-end retailer when they bought it.
very. Yeah.
And the locations they had were terrible. And
Oh,
their
yeah.
stores were in disrepair. Like Zellers was on its last legs when they bought it. Like Zellers was it. I remember
It was
Zellers
a
when I was very young.
discount. Oh,
Yeah,
when
I
I was young,
Yeah,
they were nice sellers. Yeah.
yeah. When my family first got to Canada, and this is still in the late '80s, Zellers was still decent. Our first Nintendo Entertainment System, when my parents bought it for my brother and I, it was like 1990, 1991, was bought at Zellers.
Yeah.
So like they still had it. They had Club Z. They had the little restaurant at the thing.
Club
like
Z.
yeah, but they had a lot of these things. Zellers was fine for its period of time, but it like never modernized. The problem is what I remembered in 1991, I saw in 1998. I saw in 2008. Like it didn't change. I didn't need to be nostalgic because I could walk in and see it. It was still 1991.
I always liked the cafeterias that they had. They were like
Yes.
old school cafeteria type kind of burger and fries and
Yeah.
grilled cheeses and
Yeah.
bacon and eggs, whatever. So
Yeah.
it was like an old diner.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah, well, it's one of those situations though where they were never ready when Walmart showed up. And to be clear, Walmart didn't succeed overnight. Walmart though had a plan. They said, "Let's establish a couple of stores, figure out the market. Let's learn the market, and then get our logistics figured out and then grow it from there.
Yeah,
Walmart today is doing great because they have logistics. They can get the stuff from store A to store B or the warehouse and all that. They've got it all figured out.
but they have the major buying power that nobody else has.
Correct.
Now, Amazon's competition in some things for them, sure.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
they have massive buying power.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where they rolled in these things. Walmart didn't come out of the blocks with 500 stores. That
No.
didn't happen. They started off with a handful of stores in certain select markets. They were really picky where they set up shop to try to figure it out, make sure they had it right, and then expand.
Yeah.
Today, lots of them. But it took them a while to ramp up. Once they were ramped up and established, when Target showed up, it was like they bought all these Zeller stores and think, okay, we'll do a full launch, like 150 stores, whatever, like overnight. And it was like, do you even have the stuff? Because I remember when Target opened up, I would go to the store and like it's half empty.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the stuff. They couldn't even fill their own shelves. And it wasn't because they couldn't buy it. It's like in America, they have the logistics. They have the trucks. They have the warehouses. They have all this ready to go.
And targets are very large there.
They are, but they have the logistics to handle it. They can compete in the US the way they were set up. But in Canada, they had nothing. They were just like, they might have had like one truck on the side of it where they slapped the label on it. It's like, that's not going to work, guys.
Yeah, I always thought that Canadian Tire was going to fall by the wayside, which they have anyways, dramatically since, when I was a kid, Canadian Tire was your major place. But then all the Ronas and Lowe's and all the other stores came in and just kind of took the business away from them. So they don't even really deal in hardware anymore. It's mostly bikes and discount. You've been there, so
I will say though, not for nothing, post COVID, they're doing just fine.
Oh, good.
It's going very well. Let's just say curbside pickup has been a boon for Canadian Tire. That's all I'll say about that.
Home Depot hasn't, and Lowe's hasn't been very good for curbside.
Yeah, but Canadian Tire, I will give them credit for this. I have to give them credit because I was there. I give them credit. They got on the Zoom calls like immediate. They're like, we got to figure something out. Let's figure out what we need to do. Let's get everybody. They talked to the store managers and the district managers and all that. They got everybody on board. Like, give us ideas, throw us everything you got. And they went and threw out a bunch of different stuff and they developed. It's not the most complicated system in the world, but even my local one, they've got a little panel, like a play card they put on all the parking. It's a couple of parking spots. So when you order for curbside pickup, you not only go in, you can actually park your car in front of one of these. They all have numbers. They have codes. So call the phone number, say, hey, I'm here to pick up X, whatever your order number is, and I'm on A4.
Mm-hmm.
They will literally walk it right up to your car, drop it off right beside, and then walk away.
Yeah, that's what Home Depot does and Lowe's.
Yep. And it makes perfect
you pull
sense.
in, you text back. Oh, actually, you email back. You don't even. There's no number to call, so you take that confirmation email and says, "I'm here to pick up my thing," and then another screen comes up and you put in your car make. And your order number is already there, and I'm here. And then I'm in spot 73. Boom, done.
Yeah.
And then they come out half an hour later.
Yeah. But I will say, like, from what I've seen, logistically, they did a very good job. Considering they were whipping stuff together like off the top of their heads and implementing it like this, considering that's what they were doing, they've gotten it down to a point where like they're very comfortable now firing through a lot of these things, and they've been able to be very adaptable. And they've upgraded their website. Their website's still not great, to be fair, but it's 1,000 times better than it was pre-COVID out of necessity. They got real good at fixing that website real fast and fixing their shipping department real quick. Not perfect, but 1,000 times. They've leapfrogged probably about 10 years from where they should have already been there, but now they're there.
Yeah, I would say that Canadian Tire has better employees who do, because they know all sections of the store. You can ask any employee anywhere and they'll tell you, oh yeah, that's over in thing in the fourth aisle, whatever. If you go to Home Depot, they all have their little specialties. So these guys picking orders, they've never been down the hardware aisle because they work over in plumbing or they work over in the wherever. So they don't know where to pick. So I'm saying my order I could go in through the door and get it and come back in 22 seconds. Like, why is it taking 4.5 hours? We don't pick lighter orders. Well, you should have one guy going around getting those small little orders and then the other big orders, because then you're just slowing the whole process down. The last half hour just before they closed, they served 8 people. Parking lot's empty, but all the back orders, people are showing up going, "You guys didn't call me." Well, it's like, what do you mean? Oh well,
Mhm. Yep.
poor service.
Yep. And that's and that's going to be your lifeblood right now, because if you got the store is closed, it's supposed to be for the safety of the staff. And as long as they're inside of that building, then they can do their thing, which is good. That's a good thing. But then you have to be efficient. Well, then take advantage of it. Right now, there's no customers in your way. You can go from aisle 1 to aisle 50. So you should be able to, and maybe get the stuff in a logical order. Get the stuff in aisle 1, then the stuff in aisle 2, then the stuff in aisle 3, or whatever the case may be, so that by the time you're done, your cart's full of everything. You didn't have to go back and forth, because that makes no sense. Then your cart's full of everything you need. Order's done. Go take it to the front, get it out the door. Just get it out the door, right?
Yeah.
So quickly, I'll get caught up here in the comments. So
Sure.
Jeff says, I think it's shady that Mealy Pop's guy gave Sasha T advice on the deal, but wasn't seemingly as transparent about having a relationship with Jack and Guy. Sounds to me like, based on that, that's the case. I agree. That's a bit of a conflict of interest, given that you're advising somebody on the side of the deal when you know the seller. It's a bit shady there, for sure. Love the Zellers auto hockey cards. Right on. Do you guys have a Gemco? That one ring a bell, Bobby? Doesn't
Not
ring
at
a bell
all.
for me.
What is it?
I'm not familiar with it.
Woolworths
Woolworths
Cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were cool.
Yeah. So nowhere else can you buy a big screen TV and a goldfish and a tank. Fair.
Where's that at?
A Woolworth.
Oh yeah.
Woolworth.
Oh, they had so many.
This was a lot of these stores had a lot of variety of stuff. Really
Woolworth,
weird
Woolco.
combinations. Yeah. So Paul here says Target in Alberta was a curious case study. I believe it. Minimum wage for retail if you wanted anyone to work for you was $20 an hour. Yes. I remember being in Edmonton. And there was a period of time where things were flying high. The boom, real estate price was going up and everything. You worked in a retail store and they were offering like $20 or $25 an hour.
Tim Hortons too. They were
Anywhere,
offering that
yeah.
because when the oil boom is on, those guys are spending. And honestly, you wouldn't believe how many things go out west when that boom is on in the collectibles, cards,
For sure.
other things. They're just buying like crazy because they make so much money. But see, it's feast or famine for those people.
That's the problem, is that when it's running hot, everything's high, you're riding high.
And then they're whining after.
But what happens if the price of oil goes down? What happens if the price goes down?
Or they chop the pipeline off of Canada going to the U.S.
Yep.
Lost a lot of business.
That's always been a risk. If you're a one industry thing, if this is the only thing you do, you're hitched all your wagons to it. You filled the bucket there and you got nothing else.
But they didn't want to go across Canada. They wanted to utilize the States. And then as soon as the U.S. turns off, then they go, oh, we'll do across Canada. And I think BC said, yeah, you had your chance. Sorry, you didn't want to deal with us. Fine.
Long-term thinking. You got to do some long-term thinking. Don't close off opportunities. Yeah, and couldn't staff their stores because of the local economy. I believe it. So Mealy Pops here and Sasha T will headline the next version of Operation Bullpen. Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Good evening, Mason. There we go. Just getting caught up. Perfect. But no, it's the reality of it is that long term, if there's any silver lining to a lot of this stuff, is that it has forced a lot of these companies to rethink their models and get up to date. Because some of them, out of necessity, have been like, well, you don't have the option of people walking in the store, so what else can you do? The ones who are just like staring at each other going, oh my God, what are we going to do? Are the ones that are suffering, where the other ones are like, okay, figure it out. Okay, like I said, I would love, and I think I mentioned it before, I like a lot of aspects of curbside pickup. There's a lot of businesses where I'm like, you know what? Can I order the thing in advance? You have it ready for me and I go pick it up, because I actually don't want to go through the aisles and pick up. If you can have it ready for me and I can just take it out the door, that's more convenient for me. I got other stuff to do.
Well, they're all ready for this for their future program, I think.
That's
Ready
what I'm
to
getting
go.
at. So for
It'll
some of these
eliminate-
businesses,
yeah.
for some of these businesses, figuring this out now is an excellent opportunity where I think a lot of these things are going to keep some of this
Yes,
stuff.
Sure.
And it would make sense to do so. So Alberta, 2006, if you ask employees if they stop showing up drunk or high, they tell you to go next door and make $3 more an hour. Yeah. Well, it's true. When things are riding high and you can pretty much get an entry level job that paid pretty well,
Yeah.
you'd be good to go. But that's when things are running like that, it's fine. Then when things turn, all of a sudden they're like, oh, please give us a job.
Yeah.
Huh. Isn't that interesting how that works? But that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
The other one that I think is going to be interesting, because my brother works in that one, is LCBO, because they started doing the that you could order on the website, and it would be sent to the store, and then they have it bagged up for you. You just have to show up with the ID. You already paid.
Done.
Out the door you go.
Yeah. No one wants to wait in line, especially COVID time too.
Yeah. So for today, it makes sense. But I was like, and my brother was talking to a lot of the folks at the store. He goes, I think they like it. I think they're going to keep it. Because for them, it's like, actually, it makes sense for us too. Because even during regular time, it's like, well, if you can come in, you sell the stuff, we get you out the door. That's fine too. You already paid for it. Go.
Yeah.
One person is at the desk taking the orders and putting in, and another person's going and picking, just going through the aisles and grabbing all the stuff for you. And
It's not like it's hard.
no. And it just saves a little bit of time. You're always going to have foot traffic. You're always going to have folks because one of the
Sure.
things that he gets in the store is people in the last 10 minutes. It's always every day. It's like the last 10 minutes. Like, oh my God. It's like, why do you need this bottle of liquor on a Wednesday so desperately? What possible thing? It is like, weren't you here on
Showed
Tuesday too?
up. I don't know.
Yeah. Weren't you here on Tuesday? Weren't you
And
here?
Monday,
Aren't you coming back
Saturday.
tomorrow too?
Yeah, we know those ones.
Yeah, 6 months at a job and you're a lifer. Yep. Curbside is the rebirth of consumers distributor.
Oh boy, do you remember that, Carlos?
That rings a bell, but I don't remember the specifics.
You'd walk in and it was an order form. So you'd look through the catalog at a little station, and then you would write on, like filling out a PSA order.
Okay.
It's the same kind of thing.
So it'd be
And
like
then
a counter thing.
you give
you
it to the
counter.
guy, yeah, and then they go back to the store and then they bring it out to you. It was an arduous journey going through that whole process. It was just, but we did it because
You know what the thing
no
is, though,
choice.
that's-
But it was cheaper because you
Yes.
didn't have to house the store; they just had the warehouse in the front, a little small.
You're
Yeah.
basically describing the beer store, though. Like,
Yeah.
like if you're buying certain cases of stuff and stuff, like there's stuff there that you can grab, right? Like there's just a couple of them. Depends on the size of your beer store, but you could grab a couple of things if you wanted to. But most of the time, you'd be like, "Can you give me a case of this, a case of that, or whatever?" And they'd send the guy to the back, grab them, and throw them down to the end of the line, and you pay for it.
That's the way it always was. You couldn't actually handpick beer. 30 years ago?
Yeah.
You had to always order, and you had to know what to order, and it,
Yeah.
it limited people because what's your selection? What do you want? What do you want? I don't know.
Yeah. I would say, because I didn't mind that process, and I laugh now because, like I said, in the vein of what I talked about a little earlier, and I'll remind everybody, just by the way, guys, if there's anything you guys do want to talk about, like for me, I'm just sitting here chatting with Bobby. And of course, I'm including your comments as well. If you guys want to chime in on anything, you're more than welcome. But if there's anything else you would like to talk about, feel free to throw a topic in there. We talked about the Mealy Pops and Sasha T thing. I'm going to check it out a little bit more. I am curious now. Now you've piqued my curiosity. So I definitely
Yeah,
want to check it out.
I
a
think
little
all
bit
of us.
if they're incriminating themselves, now I'm interested. Like, okay, you've gotten my attention. Now I got to check this out.
I found something for Carlos.
Okay, what's that?
You remember these?
Oh, I do. This is the SCD
Yes.
like magazine guide.
Yep.
Those
And
are
the-
pretty sweet, actually.
a package of cards, and then there's a 9-pocket page in front of it.
Nice.
This is still unopened from obviously 91. Right?
Okay. Yeah, because I remember having a copy of that magazine. I believe I still have it somewhere in my archives here. But
It's
it
still
was
sealed.
it was one with I think it was a baseball player on the front in that particular issue. But because I think they did all sports.
Eiserman.
Yeah, I think they did all sports. I can't remember.
Yep, another Krause production. Yeah, so this is still sealed in its original package. I like things in original package. I think it's cool.
To be
And look
honest
at the
with you,
3 cards.
yeah, but just imagine in 1990 or 91,
Score.
stuff like that made perfect sense though. Like you give the kid that, they got the little booklet, they got the pages, you get a little pack of cards in there. It's a great deal. Why not?
Is that in a team bag or is it a separate bag?
It's probably like a plastic bag. I don't think it's a team bag at that point. I would think
So-
it's literally just a sealed little plastic bag.
Price guide, 1 poly display page, plus 18 out of print collectible cards.
I love it's out of print. Like 1 year. Well, it's out of print, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, so I see your comment there, David G. We'll get to it in 2 seconds. One other thing I'll say real quick about that as well. In the same vein of what I said a moment ago, post-COVID, hopefully sooner rather than later, but post-COVID, I'm still going to keep, I've been enjoying the beer that I get from that local brewer. Like stuff like this where I get them, where I order directly from them. I've been enjoying it with the delivery. phenomenal. If they keep that, they will have my business because I appreciate not having to bother with it. I'm like, I'll order what I want. If they make something seasonal, I'll give it a try. But sometimes they'll throw in an extra beer, because as a good customer, they're like, oh, here's an extra one. You can sample this. Try that one. And they'll deliver it to you. And I'm like, fantastic. But what happens is now we got a good operation where I'll do that. And then these empties, I don't even want to go to the beer store. I can't be bothered. So I give it to my dad and my brother. They go offload it and I go, keep the change. but I'll go through enough of these over time where like my dad will make like 40 or $50 and the guy counts it up for him and like goes and grabs it.
How much are you drinking?
It takes a while to build them up, but I buy them by the case.
All right. In the meantime,
Drink responsibly, Bobby.
Yes.
Responsibly.
So here's that new thing I picked up. It was about the Power Puck. Now this came out in 1968, and what the Power Puck was a puck invented by a guy who said he had some sort of trademark mechanism inside that when you shot it against the wall, it would tell you how fast by the gauge, how fast.
Okay. I've seen
So whether
like
you
that.
shot 10, 20, 30. Well, Power Puck was, it came out in 68, but also it stopped sometime in the 80s, maybe the 70s. And then I think in the late 80s, Bobby Hall did another one called Power Puck. I think it was through Fox 40, which did a lot of referee whistles and other things. So there is another second Power Puck, but this one's POW-R-Puck, where the other one was Power Puck, and Bobby Hall promoted that one. Where
Well, he was one of the hardest shooters of his era, so he'd be a good guy to promote that.
Well, he was doing 108 miles an hour with a wooden stick.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like for his era, a guy who was a slap shot artist who could do that kind of thing, and he'd be the right guy to sell it.
And this was Mike Walton.
Nice.
So they did packages where they had a leaf package where it had Horton and Keon pictured on there, and then you get a little booklet inside, and you can buy one Power Puck, and then a Montreal Canadian, and even did a Gordie Howe one in a package. Those things go for a few $100s.
I believe it.
Pretty rare.
It's a cool novelty, to be honest, even just in general as a concept.
And everybody remembers the Power Puck who grew up in the sort of 70s, I guess.
All right. Sounds fair. So I'm going to put a question up here, and then I'm going to come back in a second. But this one is directly for you, Bobby. So David G says, can you tell us more about the illustration behind you with the pennants? So the little thing behind you with the pennants.
Yeah, that's actually just a program. It's just an old program from the 30s. So it's a flag that was made. I don't know if you can really see it any better. And it's just a cover of a program from Maple Leaf Gardens. So they had all the different teams up there. As you can see, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams at that time. Montreal Maroons and what was the other team? Detroit, St. Louis. So this is one of the early, would be from the 20s, because in 25 to 27, 28, that's when they expanded from 7 teams to 10 teams. And you had those one-time teams, St. Louis, I can't even remember their names now. The Detroit Tigers, Detroit Falcons, I think it was. This St. Louis Falcons, can't remember. Anyways, so that's all that is. It's just somebody did a flag. I bought it on eBay because I thought it'd be a great backdrop for when I set up my booth at the Toronto Sports Card Expo. So I just throw it up there, and just for, and obviously it works because it's kind of attractive and you kind of wonder what the heck it is. So, and then back there we have an O-Pee-Chee. Let's go the other way. That's weird how you have to do things backwards. There's an O-Pee-Chee baseball from the factory players league. So that's an old O-Pee-Chee baseball jersey from 1980 something. I can't remember. It's got the O-Pee-Chee name on it. So my backdrop is kind of basic. And we got some fill back there, some boxes, and a few other things.
All right. Sorry about that. Almost tripped over some stuff, so I need to make sure. I got to move my own knickknacks and get them out of the way.
Beer cans or something.
I wish it was beer cans. I actually got rid of most of those already. Carlos Senior already got to take it. I actually stacked them up for a while because it was one of the, like I said, I'm too lazy to go to the beer store. I've been stacking them up for about 6 months. So
Wow.
Carlos Senior, he took them. I loaded them in the car in a couple of bad because for me, I don't care. I'm not buying anything more at the beer store. So because what I used to do is I trade them in, and then you can use them as a discount for whatever. My dad just takes the cash. Now he doesn't actually need the cash because he gets his pension now. But I was like, for you, it's
Doesn't
coffee
matter.
money. For you,
Yeah.
it's coffee money. So I was literally like, if you would like, I'll clean them all up. I'll put them in boxes and set them up for you. And then you and my brother can go take it over. And whatever the proceeds are, they are all yours. You can spend them on coffee and donuts to your heart's content. Enjoy.
Yes, it's like paying for a service without paying for a service.
Basically, yes. So as I said, the proceeds are all yours, sir. So it's like, so it's a win-win. And he goes, I'll take them. So I bag them up for him. And now what happens is to save time, if you put them in like the plastic bags, which I do for like the recycling bags,
The clear
because they're
ones, yeah.
see-through, they'll take them as like a flat number and just, they won't even sit there and count them. So
Oh,
my dad
really?
was able to go there and because I had already bagged them up for him and they were already clean and ready to go. They just went, yep, that's 100. Sure. Just punch it in, punch it in, punch it in. And then he goes, he gets his money, he gets to walk right back out the door. A couple of minutes and he gets some cash. So I'm like, awesome. Fantastic.
Amazing.
Enjoy your coffee on me. Get yourself the nice one. Get yourself the extra large.
And where does he get his coffee?
He tends to go to Tim Hortons most of the time, although he will go to the McDonald's one. He does like the McDonald's coffee. It's just a little more expensive for him sometimes.
McDonald's?
I think it is. I could be mistaken, but
Okay.
I know that he tends to go to the Timmy's one more often. Mind you, that may have more to do with my younger brother's propensity for the ice cap. So maybe it's just he wants to make one trip. So that might be the case.
And that's more expensive than both.
Correct. Yeah, but it's one of those things where like if there's an ice cap involved, usually it's myself or my brother paying for the whole order anyway. So there's no money. Carlos Senior lives a charmed life. He doesn't actually pay for very much, and if he does pay for something, it was with proceeds of money that I basically gifted him.
There you go.
So it's like he's fine.
He doesn't need a pension. He has beer can money.
Oh, listen, Carlos Senior, like I said, lives a charm. He will wake up one day and he goes, oh. So now it's like now I'm rich. It's like, yeah, you are. You don't spend money on anything.
Yeah.
So I'll touch on Jeff's question in a second here. So this is the younger brother. Do not question my propensity for ice caps. I question a lot of things about your life. A lot of them.
Okay, I'm going to take a break for a second.
No
I'm gonna
worries.
go grab a
Sounds
drink. I'll be right back.
So I'll touch on this one, Jeff, while Bobby's off for a moment. Have you ever been to Frozen Pond Memorabilia Store? I have. I've been and I've ordered from them a couple of different times.
Yes.
It was a nice store. I think they've relocated since the time I was there. I've been there a couple of times just to look around, but also I was there when they were doing so this is one of the occasions where I got a Modano autograph jersey. And the way I did is I had the jersey already. It was a replica jersey, and I wanted to get it signed, and they were doing a private signing. So at the time I went in and I submitted the jersey in, paid the fee, and then they shipped it out to me. But I did buy some stuff while I was there as well. And the 16 by 20. So let me see if I can align my head a little bit. So right there, that one is actually from Frozen Pond. So it's a 16 by 20 from them, and then I put it in the frame. But I have had I've had a couple of different things that I've gotten through them, an autograph puck and stuff like that. So if the opportunity presents itself, if you bring the product though, it is a little bit cheaper. In this case of the 16 by 20, they had them. So I said, yeah, give me one of those, just because I didn't have a Detroit signed item that wasn't a card. It was obviously not an auspicious time that he had in Detroit for the one season. It wasn't a great season for him, but it was part of his career. So I thought it was interesting. So I thought I would pick it up. They did have some cool stuff there though. They definitely had a lot of autographs and things. I think some of that stuff though didn't even make it to the website. So it is kind of interesting if you do pop into that store. And they used to be pretty good for having a lot of interesting autograph guests and stuff. I think they've even got a Modano signature, a Modano signing, private signing, obviously COVID, coming up, I think in May. And I'm trying to decide if I want to get another thing signed. I think at this point I've had enough stuff signed where maybe I get the binder, maybe I get the 8 by 10 pages, and then I can just flip through it that way. So, well, we'll have to see what happens here. Guile Fielder. Is that a baseball player? Like, does Cecil Fielder have another kid? Let me see here. Guile Fielder. Oh, that's a hockey player. Okay. So let's see. Let us see about Guile Fielder. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. They were pretty good. At least you want to have something where at least you feel semi-confident about, you want to feel reasonably confident about the authenticity of your autographs, and the fact that they've done private signings and in-person signings and things like that, where I had the chance to be to those, that's usually pretty nice. Okay, so I'm looking it up here. So Guile Fielder. So he played predominantly from the 50s, played in the WHL quite a long time. Okay. So NHL-wise, not too much going on there. A lot of times in WHA playing for Seattle. Okay. It's interesting. Anything in particular about it? Be curious what you have in mind there. Actually, let me try Hockey Reference. Hockey Reference is a little better for that stuff anyway. Reference. There we go. NHL Standard, NHL Playoffs. Other. Yeah, so he very clearly had a very long career in the WHL. Okay. Anything in particular about it? It's interesting, but I don't know too much about it. Private signing makes sense. Hard to see how Cash Shop could work with the current state hope. Yeah. No, everything is going to be a private signing at this point. That is without question. And it keeps the guys in business just because it lets them still be able to offer something. Now, I would be curious. Now, this would be interesting because especially if it's Canadian store, U.S. player, is it a case where they send them the stuff and have to hope for the best? It would be one of those things where if it was me, I would be like, even if I was going to do that, I would probably then be like, can we videotape this? Because you're going to want some kind of assurances. It's going to make you very uncomfortable. Otherwise, because you're going to ask yourself a question about authenticity if you don't see anybody, if you don't really have any way of seeing them sign it. Taking a couple of pictures is nice, but it's very complicated. It's just one of those things. It's kind of interesting. Okay, so taking a look here. Okay, so Guile Fielder's apparently claim to fame is that his style of play was better suited to the minor leagues, and he kept doing it. The NHL team was willing to allow him to do the same thing in the big leagues. Okay, interesting. So he's one of those kind of obscure players. Kind of interesting. Cool. Good to know. So GMOz threw at me an obscure player from the 50s that I wasn't too familiar with, a Guile Fielder. I don't know if the name rings a bell at all, Bobby. So this would have been a guy who played predominantly in the 50s, but he had a cup of coffee in the NHL, but predominantly played in the WHL.
Oh, the World Hockey League, yeah.
Yeah. Played quite a bit there.
Nope. There's a lot of guys that had a cup of coffee in the NHL. And the WHL, I never really watched it because we had the WHA here, but mostly people in the U.S. World Hockey League was pretty big to them down there. It was mostly the Comets in there and a bunch of others. Geez, I can't even remember the names. In the Saginaw Gears, or not them? No, they were in the other league, OHL, and then the WHL. So then you had the
Yeah, apparently his big claim to fame was that in the WHL, because WHL was a professional league, apparently his claim to fame was that he scored over 1,900 points in about 1,500 games.
Wow, that's
so he compiled a ton of stats there at that time. So yeah, those totals include 439 goals and 1,490 assists. So
that's
if you count his
wow.
Yeah, if you count his playoff points, he became the first hockey player to score 2,000 points in a career.
Well, actually, I'm surprised I haven't heard of him then.
Yeah, well, it's because
That's
WHL,
50s, right? Maybe 60s. Yeah, 50s is that's pretty early for that those leagues.
Yeah, and the other thing is that basically he only played in the NHL for 15 total games, so he barely had a cup of coffee in the NHL.
Where did he play?
Predominantly out of Seattle.
In the NHL.
No, in the NHL, I'll tell you.
Not for the Kraken, man.
He played 3 games for the Blackhawks. He officially was with the Red Wings a little bit. He technically was with the Boston Bruins. He played in the playoffs a couple of games. So, his NHL total is 15 games, 9 games regular season, 6 games playoffs.
How many points in those games?
0.
Enough said. It's all timing. I think we talked about that before with a lot of different players. teams, Gretzky, Oilers, Bobby Orr, Bruins. Same thing in WHL, OHL, whenever you have those errors where, the timing's right, you end up with the right players, bad crop of goalies, just stuff happens and people get more points than maybe they should have.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about it, maybe the big kind of claim to fame is that if you think the 50s, and this was kind of the Don Cherry thing from back in the day, in the 50s, things like the WHL was a professional league. Like, it wasn't considered the same level as the NHL, but it was still a very good league for its time period.
Yeah.
And that's the context is the absolute key. So, like, statistically, some very impressive seasons. So he played a bunch of years for the Seattle Americans and the Seattle Totems, which is a great team name.
It's a great logo too.
Yeah. So 122 points in 56-57 for the so in 56-57, 122 points is massive.
That's big.
Yeah.
How many games did they play back
69.
then? Oh boy, that's even better.
Yeah. So in 69 games, 122 points. That's strong. That's really strong.
Wow, that is strong. Extremely.
Yeah. So I would say, and he had 4 or 5 100-point seasons. His last one being in 63-64 for Seattle, but then a bunch of 90-point seasons, 68, 69, 94 points. So it's one of those kind of interesting. Now here, I like this. He ended his career with 2 seasons with the Portland Buckaroos.
Oh, the good old Portland Buckaroos.
There you go. Somewhere off in the distance, I got to get Canadian cards. He likes to get his WHA jerseys. I'm like, dude, you got to get the WHL jersey. I want to see Portland Buckaroos.
There was a nice garbage can on trash can. They made nice ones back in the early times. There was a Portland Buckaroos on there. I really like that one. I actually have a Portland Buckaroos puck bank from the 70s.
Now, did the Portland Buckaroos last very long, or was it one of those
Yeah,
things that was just
a long
transient?
time. Yeah, they were
Okay.
pretty. Yep, they were there for a long time.
Are they still considered the Buckaroos, or they just went away years ago?
I think they're still the Buckaroos, but a lot of
Okay.
things have changed in the last 10, 15 years.
I haven't done any digging into it, but I do think the minor leagues of different sports are fascinating. Obviously, in that era of hockey, that was considered, obviously, that is professional hockey. Like, if the players are getting paid, it's professional. And obviously, players who could play well in those leagues and in those eras, it's still an accomplishment. But obviously, it still makes them a little bit obscure in the sands of time. But in the baseball side of things, there's a lot of history stuff like that, because you'd have players who became like great players in the Pacific Coast League and like the Atlantic League and a bunch of these other ones. Pacific Coast League even had its own cards that are like collectible. They're more obscure. They're not like the first thing people will gravitate towards. But if you like some interesting kind of things, you can go back in history. And then obviously we've talked about this before, but if you go back in time, like today, in inter-county baseball, which I'm hoping that inter-county baseball has a future, being off for 2 years for COVID is not great for a league that already has a lot of transient teams.
Mhm.
But they have the Toronto Maple Leafs
Still.
baseball team to this day. But there was a break because that team came back, but there was an original Toronto Maple Leafs team going back in time. So there was a little bit of a gap there.
30s, I think it was.
And they went back to the 1910s, even further back.
Well, they weren't the Maple Leafs. They were the Toronto. What was the name of them in the 10s? They're in the T206 set, right?
No, well, yes, they are in the T206 set. That is correct.
But they're not the Toronto Maple Leafs at that time. I think they changed over in the 30s, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of the Toronto Maple Leaf hockey players played for the Toronto Maple Leaf baseball team in the off seasons.
Yeah, I'm pulling it
Just
up right
not
now.
a very big collecting crowd for the early Maple Leafs, and it's just kind of sad, really.
Oh, for sure. It was one of those things. It was an obscure name. It's just one of those things where they were out there, but it created these various eras. So the original team played in the International League from 1896 to 1967. So that was the original run of the original team. This is the team that would have been in T206. This is the team that would have been a lot of those. They played in the International League. That was specifically what they played in.
Yeah.
But they were the Toronto Maple Leafs in their original incarnation.
Wow,
Yeah. So that was the original Toronto Maple Leafs.
amazing.
And in 1896, technically it predate the hockey team.
That does.
Yep.
Because actually, the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't start till 1927 officially, even though the Toronto Maple Leafs had their 100th anniversary. The they're going to re-celebrate that in 2027.
Yep. And from 1926 until 1967, when the original team disbanded, they played at Maple Leaf Stadium.
Mhm.
So that was what it was considered at that time. And then today, there is another team now that exists that is called the Toronto Maple. This has had a good run. It's had certainly a good long run as well. But that's in inter-county baseball, which is a very different thing, which I enjoy. I've actually watched some inter-county baseball games. They play over at Christie Pitts.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's curious, they play at Christie Pitts. I haven't been able to take in a game at Christie Pitts, and that is something I would love to do when the conditions allow, because that'd be kind of interesting. I have watched, though, a bunch of inter-county games over in Burlington, because there have been a couple of teams in Burlington. But when I say that league is transient, that Burlington team has undergone, they were the Mississauga Twins. Then they were the Burlington Twins. Then they were the Burlington Wranglers or something. Like they underwent so many versions.
Well, I think that goes without saying. You had the PCHL, you had the OHL, the IHL, the WHL, all different leagues and all professional, but not considered professional. I guess semi-professional. I guess semi-pro.
Exactly. But the
Because
thing
the
is, you
NHL
gotta
only
love
got the nod.
you gotta love the weird quaintness of that in its own way. Like it's harkening back to those old eras, like, you know, a WHA where you'd have a bunch of these short-lived teams that would suddenly move. So let me give you guys the short history of the Burlington team. So they were the Burlington Twins from 2011, but they were the Mississauga Twins right before that. So they're Mississauga Twins from 2009, 2011, moved to Burlington, became the Burlington Twins. And they were from 2011 to 2012, then became the Burlington Bandits. It's the same team. So then from 2012 to 2016, they were Burlington Bandits. Then in 2016, they were renamed the Burlington Herd. And then in
What was
2016,
going on? Changing management, changing teams. Hard to get the guys out.
Lord knows.
Gosh.
So, but they played out on Nelson Park in Burlington, and I went to games when they were the Bandits. So, so after they were I attended a game when they were the Twins, and I attended a game when they were the Bandits. I didn't get to see the Mississauga, because Mississauga, the problem is everything is out in the distance. Like, the ballpark they're in is like in North Mississauga, which may as well be another country. Like it's ridiculous. But so then they moved. So now the team, as of 2018, moved to Welland, and has become the Welland Jackfish. Because reasons. So that team has changed names 5 times since they were in Mississauga, and they were in Mississauga from 2009. So let's say 12 years, they have undergone 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 names.
Amazing.
And that's one team.
Well, like they were asking me about the flags and it's really just a cover of the Toronto program from the 20s. Because in 1925 they expanded to 10 teams. So we were talking. I was in Detroit Falcons, and everything was the St. Louis. It was the St. Louis Eagles, and New York Americans. Montreal Maroons, they were around for a long time. I forget the other team. Oh, Pittsburgh Pirates. So you had the similar name baseball team at the same time. They couldn't get creative enough to make their hockey team named anything else. And they played at the Duquesne Arena. There's a great history back in that time period. But those teams folded pretty quick. And by 1930, it was 31, 32, back to, almost into the original 6, basically, just a little bit after that, to the 40s. Was it 42 to 67? The original sort of 6.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, whenever you have that kind of era, the thing about it is that it becomes what we talked about earlier on tonight. It becomes makeshift. They make a bunch of decisions. It's like, because a lot of these things, there's not a lot of money. Like, I just use the example of intercounty baseball because it's funny, because I'm at least familiar with it. But that is like, it's fun baseball if you love baseball. This is the key indicator. If you love the game, then it's a fun game for you to watch, because the players are good. Are they majorly good? No, they're not. But former major league players have played in that league. Paul Quantrill, who was a major league pitcher, he has pitched in the Intercounty Baseball League. There have been players, I think Rob Butler was a player in this, who played in the major league. So, like, there are players of formerly major league caliber who will come here and play this because they still want to play. And then there are other players who will never get up to that level. They're simply not good enough. Otherwise, they'd be in the minors with somebody's system right now. But maybe they still have a dream of playing in some way. And this is it. And a lot of these teams are in Southern Ontario. So it's a very specific region. So even as many silly team nicknames as they have. My only regret was that when they were the Burlington Twins, I wanted to buy one of the Profit hats, but they were charging like the full Profit hat price. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not paying 35 or 40 bucks for the Burlington Twins hat. I don't know. It's like, I'm interested, but I'm not that interested. In retrospect, though, I kind of would love to have it just as a novelty, just for the entertainment of it.
Why not? I like wearing hats. Well, I got some team logos from those teams, so I can show you a few.
So
from
those
the
hockey teams?
hockey teams.
Yep.
You have the Des Moines Capitals.
Oh, good Lord, the Des Moines Capitals.
Exactly. You have the Saginaw Gears.
That's not a bad logo, actually. I like that.
Yeah, they're kind of unique. This is San Diego Gulls. Port Huron looks like Detroit Red Wings, so not too far off, but Port Huron, so it's pretty close. Toledo Hornets. They're a pretty good history on there. Denver Spurs. And the last one is Salt Lake City Eagles.
All right, nice.
Mhm. That's it. That's all I got. Oh, what's this last one? Oh, the Flint Generals.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Flint,
Flint is
Michigan. That's where I actually went on a billeting for hockey when I played at Ted Reeves for many years.
All right.
Went to Flint. It was exciting.
Today, Flint, Michigan, not so exciting.
Not so exciting. It wasn't exciting back then. The arena wasn't very nice.
A precursor to the future. Yeah, that's fair. See, sometimes going down a rabbit hole makes me happy. As I was quickly scanning it, apparently one of the articles on the IBL website, Intercounty Baseball, Welland has received an extension on its lease for 6 more years. So the Welland team
Might not change the name.
they might be able to hang on. They'll still remain the Jackfish. I'm trying to figure out if I should be loyal to this team that was once the Mississauga Twins, Bobby. I don't
Where
know.
did they get Jackfish? Is that more of Welland in the fishing and?
I guess so.
Jeez.
The thing is, the more regional it gets, the funnier it becomes because you're just like, okay, can you guys just explain it to me? I don't understand. Okay,
True.
why? Just explain.
Yeah, makes no sense. Yeah, I don't understand some of the names of these Toledo Hornets. Actually, some of the logos are really cool, and people enjoy collecting different logos of those professional semi-pro leagues.
But I will say, if you do get a chance, obviously, once things are back to normal-ish, if you can go out to some of these things, have fun. Go out and check out some of this stuff because I think there's a lot of folks that'll be a lot more appreciative of little things like that. It's like because a lot of times, like for Christie Pitts, now I think it's free to go watch the games. So it used to be that they charged a little bit, but now it's free, and now you can just go buy a hot dog, watch a game, have some fun.
Hot dog and a beer, and enjoy your afternoon.
Exactly, and that's all it's supposed to be. That's really what it should be. One that I'll have to try to get to, and this is something that I would like to do if the opportunity presents itself. They got the team in Guelph too, because Guelph is where I went to school. So I'd love to go to David Haskins Stadium there and go watch the Guelph Royals. We've been there for a little while, so it's like stuff like that, little things like that.
It's always the little things.
Like I said, I've watched hundreds of games at the Dome. I watched the Jays play. The Buffalo Bisons are fun. But
Yeah.
for that, you gotta go down to Buffalo, which isn't something I'd rush to do right now.
The Greasetown Mall? Cheektowaga?
Yeah. Listen, if it was in sunny scenic Tonawanda, different story. Sunny scenic Tonawanda, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. But yeah, but I will say I think it's Coca-Cola Stadium, or maybe they renamed it. But the stadium they have there is actually not bad. It's actually, for baseball, it's a great venue.
Mhm.
For again, if you enjoy the game. If you enjoy the game, it's a great venue because you can sit down, and they got craft beer pavilions over on the side, and like grab some food, sit down, enjoy the game. You're watching professionals play. They're still professionals.
It's just a nice afternoon.
Exactly. That's just
You
it.
know, it doesn't have to always be about how good the game is going to be. It's just it's a form of entertainment. If you know, go with a couple friends, have a little talk, something to drink, something to eat, everybody's happy.
I would argue, depending on the game, a lot of times those AAA baseball games are better than the Major League games.
Yeah.
It's just a better game to watch because you don't have as many
They're
silly
hungry.
breaks. You don't have as many unnecessary stoppages in play. The players go and they do their thing because they know what they're out there to do,
Yeah.
and they can still play at a high level because a lot of them have ambitions of Major League Baseball. So they're trying to play. They're trying
They're
to win.
hungry.
They're trying to perform. So performing is to their advantage because if you would like to maybe elevate yourself to the next level, this is it. Demonstrate.
And the concessions aren't as expensive as they are in the professional
No.
arenas.
No, you can get much thing. And in the same vein, in the hockey side of thing, the AHL is fun to watch. I've been to a number of AHL games. They're fun. Even like CHL games are fun to watch. Like there's plenty of levels that you can watch a good game for a reasonable price. Sit down and enjoy, have some fun.
Yep.
That is my general recommendation when the opportunity presents itself and we can get back to it.
True.
Okay, so let me touch on the PWCC thing here real quick because that was the third of the topics that I wanted to touch on. It's not significant, but there are a couple of interesting wrinkles to it that I'll throw out there since you guys are so chatty in the chat. So I will take over and do this. So, Bobby, have you heard at all about PWCC creating what they call Premier Auction? Are you familiar with this?
No.
Okay, so let me give a little background. I'll show, and then we'll talk about it. There's a reason, though, that I'm bringing it up, is that I think there is something interesting about it. So let me talk about this. So PWCC has what they're calling the Premier Auction. And this is, they're basically advertising for higher end stuff. They're thinking about 50,000 plus. But there's a reason why this is significant. And let me explain. And stop me if this sounds familiar. These auctions, they're running off platform, not on eBay. These are on platform through their site where you have to apply to bid, and they have extended bidding. Stop me if this sounds familiar.
Don't have to.
Now remember, an individual, Ken Golden, who likes to talk a ton of smack about eBay and PWCC was basically criticizing them for not like, well, why are you the biggest one on eBay? Why don't you have your own platform? Why don't you have somewhere off at PWCC is like, fine, we will.
Yeah, Brent went, okay.
No, for a high-end stuff, it makes more sense. If it's a high-end item, you need validated bidders.
Yeah.
You need bidders that have been vouched for. You need some kind of a credit check. You need something to tell you that if somebody wins this auction, they're going to pay. It's logical. It makes sense. Like it's not. This isn't reinventing the wheel out here.
Well, didn't I mention before that why didn't PWCC do something off platform?
Yeah.
They were big enough to do it, and I guess they took my recommendation.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. Like it was not shocking. Again, this goes under the category of not shocking. Probably about time, but obviously they've been pushed. Now there's been enough pushes, and like they're probably sitting there. They've taken so many jabs from like Ken Golden and others where they're like, fine, we'll do it because they don't want to lose market share, right?
No.
Because a lot of times Ken Golden is getting a lot of his stuff from the PWCC vault, and you can't imagine that they don't realize that. And,
Exactly.
And Ken Golden takes glee when he does the unboxings. Every time it's a PWCC thing, he'll like emphasize, oh, I love when I get stuff from the PWCC vault.
Mm-hmm.
Basically just like,
Exactly.
just keep going like this. Like I said, a troll after my own heart. I do not deny. But I'm saying like, well, it sounds to me like PWCC then should be like, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
We'd stayed out of this, but since apparently you think we should get into this, maybe we should get into this.
And Ken Goldman goes, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
It's not a bad thing though. Competition in this case is good. It is a good thing to have some more competition. That's good.
This is the time to make the moves. If there's any time to make it, it would have been last year or this year, the early part of this year. We'll see what happens mid.
Yeah. And they still have a ton of inventory under that vault. So I promise you there's probably a lot of deals they can make where be like, hey guys, if you already got the cards in the vault, we already got the scans, they're done for you.
When
We
people,
can set up a couple auctions for you, and here you go. You can probably make some deals. And if you give some competitive, like you give a competitive rate for the listing and stuff, and for the final value fees and whatever you want to call it, you could basically, and you're a seller who's maybe interested in selling something. Maybe instead of sending it out to the vault and sending it over to Golden, maybe you keep it into PWCC and put it in there. We'll have to see what this stuff sells for, but if they get some good prices, the competition's on.
I know my friend's selling a lot of cards, and he's getting people to drop ship it to PWCC Vault.
Yeah.
And after I bought something from them, PWCC, they said, "Hey, consider leaving it with us in our vault."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I don't like losing contact and control of my cards.
No, I get you. But as a one-stop shop for somebody who maybe has some very expensive cards that they don't want to have in their place, having it in a vault somewhere, that may be, especially if you think down the road you are going to sell it anyway. So in the back of your mind, you're like, if you're already predisposed to this, then it's one less step in the chain of command. You already know where it is and be like, okay, ship it from there.
I never liked that part of it. I like to keep control, because you might make a decision, you might make a trade, you might do a lot of different things. And when you have it stored somewhere, then it's kind of out of your control to do those things.
It is. But I guess it depends on how much additional work you want to do. Like maybe I'll put it this way. And this would be maybe the way I think about it, because the way the Premier Auction is structured, let's put it this way. You've done a couple of, you've done business, Bobby, as a dealer, as a buyer, as a collector, and doing a lot of different things. Have you had any $50,000 or $100,000 items in your possession?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you had, let's say, a couple of $1 million worth of merch inventory, would you keep it in the house?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe like a bank vault or something like that, or.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So I'm thinking from the perspective of somebody who may have stuff like that. They may simply not want to deal with the hassle.
But usually those people have means, and
Sure.
their houses have high-end security and what have you. So
No, sure. But why keep one more valuable thing in there that, especially if you think that you are going to sell it down the road, because you've already got a platform where you hit a button.
oh no, I
goes into
understand
an
that. I think it's more on the investment side of things. Okay, it's ready to go. It's time. Prices are up, prices are down, whatever. Just go for it.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'm
And
including Fresh Bread's here's question. Any thoughts on eBay pulling listings for GMA and HGA? I'm in the same boat as Jeff. Could you give a little bit more specifics? Because I haven't heard anything like that.
No.
I'm sure there's a possibility that stuff like that's being done, but usually there's a reason. So is there anything specific that you have in mind or that you heard about that? Because otherwise, for the most part, JMA and HJMA and HGA cards are there. Now, where there could be a problem, and this is why I'm asking about the additional background. If you've got a GMA or HGA card and you put PSA in the subject line, eBay could frown upon that as kind of being misleading. I would love to see eBay crack down on stuff like that, where like if it's not a PSA slab, don't put PSA in the title, because that's misleading. So that could be a thing. But again, if you could offer some specifics, that would be really helpful. But I've definitely seen a lot of HGA stuff on there as well. Same like Jeff. And I've definitely seen GMA. Lots of them on there.
Yeah.
I've just seen people mention their listings being pulled. That's possible. But I think it's one of those things. And maybe this is kind of a good topic, really quick. So for the PWCC thing, guys, my big takeaways are as follows, really quick. Number one, I'm interested in seeing the competition side of it. I like it. I'm glad they got into the game a little bit now. We'll see how they do. We'll see how their first couple of auctions do, because that'll be a big indicator. If they're able to get some good results, maybe let the games begin. I encourage a couple more players in the market is not a bad thing. The vouched bidders and the extended bidding is generally a way of getting more money. So they could potentially get some big results, and that would be huge for them. So that's a good thing. Secondly, I think it'll be interesting to see if they find enough success. Right now, they're starting off at the very high end. They're starting at like 50,000 plus. So this is high end stuff. I'd be curious to see if they would come back down a little bit into the, maybe 10,000, 5,000 category, and then try to eat into a little bit of Golden's market share. because Golden tried to increase their market share by going down into like the $100 or couple of $100 category as well. But they're also making the distinction between the lower end stuff and the higher end stuff. Well, PWCC could do the same. Just mimic them, mimic what they're doing, and give yourself, especially if your stuff's already in the vault. Anything that's already in the vault can have a decided advantage where, like, hey, it's a one-stop shop. You already got all the stuff. Hit the button and start selling.
I'm just seeing that PWCC has 3 PSA 9 Gretzky rookies up for auction right now.
Sure. Now, is this through eBay or through their platform or through
eBay.
their Premier? Okay,
It looks
through
like it's eBay,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, one is a buy it now or best offer at 575,000.
Sure.
One is 89 bids at 182,000, and the other one is 475 or best offer 475,000, of course. So I guess one's maybe has a higher tier value for their ratings. That's why the higher buy it now price.
It could be. I think also when you do the stuff through the vault, you can specify the pricing you want, because at the end of the day, PWCC is playing the role of a consignor here. Like, they have the card and they've got the scans and they got all that. And by the way, credit to them. Let's give them some credits where we can. If you ever check out PWCC auctions, they can take high-res scans, and they do sometimes have some really nice high-res scans. So they do usually a pretty good job on some of those cards.
Not all of them, though.
I said some. I was very clear on that.
Well, I
But-
stole some from my book. I was needing an extra, and I went, that's not very high res.
Yeah, it very much will depend on the card. But there's definitely some where they will take the time to really do a nice high-res scan. And especially on some of the big ticket items, it's helpful to have that kind of thing. So
If it's on the good end, yeah, of course.
yeah, of course. It's not exactly shocking that it's like, wait, the thing that will make us more money, we put more effort into? Yes.
Maybe.
It's kind of a traditional auction. In fairness, though, like, that's a traditional auction thing. Like, you take Heritage, or you take what's the other one? Not Leland's, but there's another one that does a lot of auction catalogs. I'm thinking one that does the old physical catalogs. The name is
other than Heritage, it's Mile High.
Yes, thank you. So imagine it's a big ticket item, and they go and not only do they do a spread, they show the card, a nice big picture of the card. They show like information about it, and really go into a whole write-up and everything. It's not an accident.
Mhm.
It's not a coincidence. There's a pecking order, right? And it's like, and that's in every collecting genre.
It
If
is.
there's an auction, it's going to be part of the game. Always.
Yeah, some don't show a lot of stuff. If they're selling a display box, they'll show the front and the side. Well, the back and the underside are important too. What if there's tape stains or
Right.
whatever, pen marks? They just don't show enough. Card's easy, front and back. If it's graded, front alone is probably good enough. But with the other things, I find that they lack, or they write a lot of fluff in their articles where they tell you about, this is a Wayne Gretzky rookie card, and Wayne Gretzky played, and and then they get
Well,
more
there's only so much you can do with this 1979-80 O.P.G. Gretzky. It's like, what do you want him to say? The blue is a vibrant shade of, pull out the color wheel and be like, guys, it's this shade of blue.
That's right.
And it's like,
Midnight blue.
that's a tough sell.
It's more with their other items that they're trying to describe,
Correct.
not cards. I just try to be relative to cards here, and
No, I
sometimes
get
it
it.
doesn't work.
I got it. Yeah, there is, but there is there's a you can really tell the difference. You can very much tell the difference between certain types of items.
Mhm.
And there is a lot of that for sure.
Like they convince you of this being the best thing in the world ever.
Well, sometimes the write-ups are fun though. Like, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the write-ups are fun. Depends
They're
on the
actually
item.
all entertaining for the most part because they're just fudging their way through it, and they really don't know a lot as much as you think they should know. Like when I research, I do pretty high-end detailed stuff. These guys, I'm just going, man, come on. Like, what do you guys think? Is it just a writer and the guy doesn't know anything about the item, or is it just, yes, it is?
I think
Just
there
the
is,
writer.
and I've said this before. I do think there is a lack of sophistication in the sports card hobby. I think it's still a very immature market. Like, you really can't tell the difference between the way the auction houses treat the stuff, because in a lot of other categories, they will have like legitimate experts, or people that will like do heavy research, like
Mhm.
heavy research. And you can tell they've done the research. When
Yeah.
you look at the write-up, you get certain details that's like, no, you didn't go to Wikipedia for that. You actually had to go do a little bit of digging, really get some information and ask a couple of people, ask a couple of questions, get some provenance information, and you had to do that. There you go. Color wheel. I require a proper hex code that can be cross-referenced in indecent imagery. So, in addition to being a smartass, because anyone related to me is a smartass, my younger brother is also a graphics artist, so this also plays plays into his wheelhouse, where he talks about the hex code. And yet, no branding, you slacker. He was going to do a little bit of branding for the YouTube channel. It's like I still haven't seen it.
Hmm.
It's like one job. All he's snarky comments. I get snarky comments, and otherwise nothing.
And where has he been all this time?
Oh, he's right now. He's sitting there. Right now, he's sitting in his room, probably checking out some anime stuff or doing something there, and we're just in the background as noise.
Got it.
Hey, listen, it's all right. We can have if you have us on in the background as noise, that explains a lot. but that's okay. We're having some fun. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. Two things. I talked about the three main topics I wanted to touch on. That was my number one goal. I wanted to make sure I hit on them, and I did. And we indeed have. So here we go. At least show up with some beer. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so that's my old buddy from university. True statement. Yeah, internet breaking up. Be back next lecture. Oh, I bet the internet is breaking up. Indeed. What a coincidence. I tell him he needs to do some work. Boom. Oh, it's like the phone. Start it.
Yeah. Gotta go. Bye.
It's like, it doesn't quite work that way, but all right then.
In movies only.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, I stand by that. That's a fair point. All the complaining. Well, then the problem is, so one of my favorite things is when I go over for dinner, I basically say, so did you buy any new beer? And he's like, and I'm like, yep, that's right. It's like, you have one job.
At least he gives it to you.
Well, what choice is there? His continued life. I could have smothered him with a pillow 100 times by now.
I know.
I've had so many opportunities. It's like, be grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Show some gratitude. All I ask is that the cold beer be there when I show up. Make sure it's there. That's it. You have one job.
Mm-hmm.
This one, at least he does. So, it's a step in the right direction.
There you go.
Exactly. Always complains. He works at the LCBO. Get more beer then.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? What are you complaining about? You have easy access, so be quiet. But anyway, but yeah. So the point that I was going to make, snarkiness notwithstanding, was number one. If there is anything else you guys want to touch on, let me know. Right now, it's been a good live stream. We had some fun, but I'm very much going to follow the idea. I sent out the link to a couple of the guys. They haven't popped in today, so maybe they're off having some fun. Maybe they're off partying.
Partying.
Who knows?
Groups
It
of less
was a
than
Friday
5.
night into a Saturday. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, happens.
Yeah, it could be. Dave could be off chasing tornadoes or something. Steve could be off doing what hockey oracles do.
I got 10 of these, so I might as well try another one.
So,
No.
yeah, I would be curious. I'd be curious if they actually had a different answer on one of those. That would be
No, I think it's either sweepstakes or you win a prize.
Oh, you
just enter the sweepstakes ticket. Yeah, I've seen too many of these kind of things. So,
Okay.
and just like the roll up the rim. Actually, my postman, he won a car. He won the Toyota, whatever it was, many years ago.
On the roll up.
It's funny. Oh yeah, on the roll up in my parking lot of my condo. He comes in. I was down in the mailbox, and he goes, "Oh, okay." He goes, "I'll see you later." And I was walking out to the back, and he was going to throw his cup down, but he seen me, and he didn't throw his cup, and he looked in it, and sure enough, he won a car. And he's the worst postman ever, but he wins a car.
Nice.
And he was going to throw that cup
Mm.
on the thing because I seen him getting into his car, and he kind of had it in his hand off to the side. It was empty. The funny thing he told me, he says there's this truck that he comes in. It was one of those double pull-ins.
Okay.
He said this truck, he always meets him about the same time early in the morning. He says, yeah, this guy kind of drove in and jumped in front of me and placed his order faster than I did. And I was obviously there first, but I was in no hurry. So he says, oh, so the guy missed the cup. So the guy who truck pulled in front of him, didn't get the winner. He ended up with the car. Karma.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's still a dick. So
Well, as long as you include that. So, well, he's still a dick, guys. Just
Yeah.
you know, yeah, that's fair. So what I'll do is this. I want to double check. So I'm gonna pop behind me, just behind this wall, to double check something, because I have a couple of auction catalogs, and I wanted to see if I could show a little bit of the contrast between it. Different genre, but same idea. It's auction catalogs are auction catalogs. But I'll show you guys kind of the difference between one and another, just as a little demonstration, because I happen to have a couple of them lying around. So I will collect my materials, but I'll be back in a second. But let me ask one thing of you, Bobby, while we're doing that.
sure.
One thing that I think is interesting, and it kind of plays off of what we talked about a little bit earlier on, is that as you go through the different research things, this moment in time, this will be a question that I'll leave open-ended, and you can give a little insight into it, because this will be a good kind of semi-promotion for when you're ready for the website.
Sure.
Right now, you're doing the additional research, you're going through the additional components of it. Is it a situation where now you're going back chronologically through anything you feel like needs additional fleshing out? Or is it a case where, like, since a lot of the stuff has been covered, you're just adding in some pieces here and there? Is it a bit random, or are you going chronologically? What's the situation with that?
Yeah, it's chronological. So now I'm
Okay.
into the food issue. All the cards are done.
Okay.
Stickers aren't done quite yet to the 80s. So I'm in the 60s now. I'm hitting those issues, and I'm kind of just re-looking at things and rethinking things. I've added a lot of new information, so I'll just dump stuff in that file over the last 5 years to 6 years. I've just been throwing stuff in there. Then I go through the file and I go, oh yeah, that picture, I got to crop it up and bring that in because that's a new item or a new promotion or a new advertisement or something like that.
Okay.
So, or an upgrade picture. And then that one really struck me. I was looking at it and I'm going, why the heck with the York peanut butter glasses? Why was like that? And you know how your mind, because I know so much of this stuff, I was just kind of going bang, 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 and I went, maybe this wasn't issued the second year. Maybe it's the same year, because the two different manufacturers make you think 2 years right off. But if you think about it, the production stops. They're doing other stuff, and they go, we can't do it. Why don't we bring out those? They repeat a lot of the players, and then a couple new ones, very randomish.
Mhm.
So I think it is what it is. I think it's just 1 year. And there's no advertisement in the second year for them at all. And they're doing a card promotion, huge card promotion for
Okay.
and what have you. So I think I struck gold on that one. It doesn't really do much, but even if you change it, people will still call it Series 1 or Series 2.
Okay, I
Don't
think
really
that's
won't
fair.
matter much.
So let me ask this question. So this is where I'll put in a moment here that'll give me the window to pop here and grab the catalog.
Sure.
I know already a lot of the regulars do already know this, but I want to emphasize part of the discussion that we're having with what you're talking about is that you're working on a website, which is going to be a digital version, an enhanced variation of what has been in some of your books, information previously accumulated, articles and all that.
Mm,
Do you want to quickly outline for those who may not have seen it before
sure.
what your plan is, what you're going to do, because you're going to create a website that's going to have all this information
Mhm.
in a window. Do you want to give like the 60-second elevator pitch and then I'll come right
No
back?
problem. Go ahead.
Sounds good.
Okay, so what I've been working on for the last 2 years is a website. Now we're getting away from the published version and getting into the online version. It's so much more convenient. It can be updated, within minutes if there's any issues or mistakes, or which mistakes roll in all the time. So we built the format where we're going to have a website, and everything will be listed through search patterns. Whatever your preset is, you can preset it to just search the 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way up to the 1990s. It doesn't go past that. We're going to have all the different food issues, cards, and a lot of the merchandise that's documentable. That'll be in there. So whatever's in my book right now, which is averaging 200 to 300 pages, it'll be about almost 1,000 pages worth of something new because of all the extra things I'll be able to add. Because with books, you have restrictions because the pages cost you money. So you can only print so much. So this new website will include that. So it'll have search patterns. You can save them. It'll be on your iPhone or whatever phone you have. It'll be acceptable, and you'll be able to search, save wherever you are and look up anything in any different way you want to look it up. There's so many different criteria. I'd really like to get it down to a few key ones at the very top. I was looking at it, I was doing some searching in it today, and I was looking at what I've loaded in or what he's loaded in, and I kind of said, well, this is it's a little task oriented trying to get into this. Can we do it this way? And he goes, yeah, okay, well, let's look at that. And he can change that easily enough. And I'm saying, yeah, if we and keep rather than having a text search, it's better to have a picture search too. You know, you can look through, you know, pictures of the 10s, 20, and then maybe find your card or find your promotion much easier through picture opposed to text, because sometimes you don't know. You grab an item and you go, what the heck is this? You know, it's a pen holder for the St. Louis Blues. Like, what do you look under? Pucks? Do you look under pens? Do you look under? So,
no, for sure. I do think, I will say, and I know you guys are working on design, but I think there is still some value to a text search, only because if the item
it'll still
has
be
a
there.
manufacturer, yeah. But okay, so then a follow-up question. Then I hadn't asked you this before, so I'm curious. For the existing articles and the one you already have, are they going to be? Are they like PDF files or stuff like that, or is it like a website based? So that's HTML.
Yes, it'll all be. So when you go into the app or the website,
Sure.
so whatever you go through, it'll have. So you go into a specific year. So all the pictures come up on the right hand side, and you can scroll through all the different pictures that are there. You can click them; they enlarge to the whole size of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And you click down, go to the next one. You can enlarge it, or just click on it and just to look at it. So it's all there, and I can keep adding whatever I want. So it'll all be in there. Not every card, unfortunately, you can't put pictures of every card in there, which is somebody did something pretty brilliant on the internet where they picture every card and go, well, how did that guy do that? Well, what he had done is people donated pictures.
Yeah,
to his site.
Crowdsourced, yeah.
So that way it doesn't infringe on the copyright, because people have, but there's one guy who's donated, 48,000 pictures. So it's sort of like, hey buddy, so we might be able to get away with that, because I'd like to put pictures of every card in there, but we cannot do that. But you can put pictures of as many ads as you want, or pictures of what's a display box, 6 different sides of it, or flattened out, whatever you want to do. You can add all those extra things. That's when you get into player pictures, that's very limiting. And I'd like to find my way around that a little bit before we get going.
That sounds fair. The only reason I asked is because for pictures, I figured you're good. But the thought process I was having was that a lot of articles and things, if it has text, depending on the format that the text is in, sometimes the text is a little more searchable. Again, I'm thinking back to kind of the...
I gotcha.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, like from my history background side of it, because one of the resources that I had when I was in university, one of the things we used was called JSTOR. Are you familiar with JSTOR?
Nope.
So JSTOR is just a database of journals and articles. So it's literally, that's what it's designed to do, is that it would be thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of journals of all kinds of subjects, anything you could think of. So you had to become, talk about Google foo, but you had to have the syntax just right so that you wouldn't end up with a bunch of weird stuff that you have no idea what you're looking for. But if you got good at it, you could find all kinds of crazy articles, because they had articles scanned in searchable format going back to the 1800s, all in digital format. So this wealth of information, this huge reservoir of info, searchable by text, because it was articles, right?
I don't know if we're going to do that.
No, that's fair.
I don't think we want people taking those articles and, cut and pasting. If you do picture format, then they have to physically copy it, and it makes it a little bit harder. They're going to pay for the website anyways, but I mean, regardless.
Yeah.
But the
that answers Fresh Bread's question he had here, but yes, the answer is yes.
There will be a fee for the site. Yeah. You have to, because actually you get Apple and Google, and they'll charge everybody. For anybody who has an app, they charge you 1/3.
In all fairness as well, you're also building a database of data. Like it's all, and there is, even if you forget about everything else, there is a cost to storing. There's a cost of storing this information. There's a cost to building the site. There's a cost of storing the information, and there's a cost of creating a database.
And the cost of doing all the research.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying, even if you remove that from it, there's its ongoing cost. Simply
never
having the
ends.
website, simply
Yeah.
having the website
Yeah.
incurs a cost that is ongoing in perpetuity as long as the site
It
exists.
does. Exactly. So you do have to have a cost, but it'll be very nominal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with the searches for articles, I think they'll be named with keyword names. So when you search the article, you'll find it pretty readily because it'll be keyword search named. It'll be titled properly. So
Okay.
it'll
So
come
you're
up a
doing it
lot
by the
faster.
keyword search format. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the way you basically have to, and you can do it with, if you're looking for something specific, like I don't know, orange gum from 1981 that they did the hockey wrappers in. You just type in orange gum, or you can just type in orange because there won't be too many oranges in there and the whole thing. So, you'll figure it out pretty fast, and those things will come up. So yes, everything will be key search able.
Yeah. One tip I'll give to anybody, and this is not even Bobby's side, it's anything. The simpler the terms you can include, the less amount of words, usually the better shot you have at potentially capturing something that could get easily missed. Being specific is awesome because if you already know exactly what it is and it's listed a certain way, this is for eBay, this is for anything. If you know exactly what it is, well, that's great. Then be as specific as you can. Put the sequencing of words exactly the way you want them, and that's even better. But if it is something where you're not 100% sure, then simpler terms are better because you got a shot at catching them.
Apostrophes sometimes are weird. Sometimes it's Kellogg's, or like O'Keefe says too. That's
why, depending on how the search engine works, something like that, I would go Kellogg. Just like I would leave I would even bother with because then you catch someone with the apostrophe and you catch someone without.
Yeah.
So you give that's why I say simplify the term if you can get away with it. Mm-hmm. If it's something with the word the, maybe then don't bother with that. That's not going to work. But if it's something like Kellogg's, maybe with an apostrophe without, Kellogg might catch both.
We'll see. Did that PWCC search for the 7-Eleven exographs. You came up with some, and then I just did a small search, exograph. That's it. And then it brought up those other ones. So it was like, wow, awesome.
Yeah. It's a small tweak. It's a small little, but that's practice. You will acquire that. You will acquire that understanding, and you can tweak it to really fine tune. But sometimes you need multiple search phrases to really get to the heart of the matter and find exactly what you're looking for. Oh. So I agree with Victor very much in terms of that idea as well. So
always something there. Rookie, key. Anyways, go ahead.
Absolutely. And you've also got the acronyms, and you got the short version, the long version.
Yeah.
There's a lot of versions of it.
I got a catalog too. I got a bunch of them, but
there you go. Topps astronaut pictures. So this one here, this is from Philips. So this is from 2017. So it's a watch catalog. So these guys are pretty solid in terms of they play around. They're not kidding around. These things are heavy. So
you know what that costs? Oh my gosh!
With the stuff they're selling, it's not surprising. So I'll show you an example here. So that's a gold Rolex there. That's one of the feature pieces. This is the Geneva watch auction from 2017. Now this is one of the more feature pieces. This is one of the ones on the cover. So because it's the one on the cover. They'll include so this one here. This is again from 2017. This is a gold Oyster Paul Newman chronograph. So this is a Paul Newman. So this
that
is
was the Paul Newman one. Yeah.
This is one of them. So what happens is it has a full write up on it on the other side. But what happens is so just to give you a contrast, okay? So the differentiator in a auction catalog. This one has the write-up, but it says, for decades, scholars and collectors have debated the possibility of a yellow gold Paul Newman wristwatch with screw-down pushers. To some, it is virtually incomprehensible that a correct example would ever embrace the market. So this is something that's a more obscure one where you have to go into the Rolex archives because this is not a common model. And it's an all gold piece. So it's not like there's a bunch of these lying around. For a connoisseur of it, this is a pretty high-end piece. So basically here, yet the Rolex community discovered 2 yellow gold Daytonas with screw-down pushers, both with a very close serial range. So they're down to researching the serial numbers on them to confirm and validate. So again, much heavier research. It's not like it's a gold watch and it says Rolex on the front and it's pretty cool.
And Paul Newman used it, I think.
Yeah. Not so much. They have to be a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
So when you go to the front, though, the beginning portion of the catalog, and there's a lot of these pieces, you can see it's half a page. So they still get a write-up, but it's a very clear differentiator. The picture's smaller and the write-up is smaller. So for example, this one here is a Tag Heuer Camaro. So this one here is from the 1970. It says 1970.
Wow.
So they'll give you the reference number, the case number, the model number, the material, the clasp size, the dimensions, and an estimate. There is no write-up whatsoever.
Sizes too? Wow.
Yeah. But like it tells you a little bit about it. Like it's basically a spec sheet.
Mhm.
It's name,
I love
number,
that.
rank.
I
Name,
think
number,
that's
rank.
important. Ever go on eBay and they don't say the size? It's like, is it like 2 inches or 18 inches?
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's no scale.
But you can see though the differentiator between one of the featured pieces and one where it's like and one that gets a full multi-page spread and write-up, a very different kettle of fish. And some of them, like this one here, I'll say, gets this one actually gets So this one here is what they call the Rolex Galaxy. It actually gets 4 pages. It gets a full breakdown and write-up.
Paul Newman didn't get 4 pages? But that
They
one
even
did?
include the ad that it's shown.
Oh, I
A
love
picture of the ad to give background. So like if you're a connoisseur and you want to do some research, actually these catalogs have information on some of these pieces. So I'm just using it as an example. And then here's the page that actually contains the regular one with the regular spec sheet. But you got 2 pages of background and then the spec sheet and the rest of it.
that. It's a pretty plain looking watch, really.
It is, absolutely. But it is a scarce piece, especially for
Yes.
the era. This is a 1951. And it's 36 millimeters, which was a standard size for the time. This one is 36 millimeters. So it's the same general idea. And the estimate at the time was between $198,000 and $396,000.
Wow.
So if you're a collector of Rolex, that is a piece you want. That kind of thing. It got a 4-page write-up. The other one was name, rank, and number, half a page. Very big difference. That's what I just use that as a contrast for like auction catalogs. And when you got the high-end auction catalog that gets the big blown up picture, you get the close-up of the dial, you get the background with the ad, you get all this wonderful write-up and background and history. And the other one, name, number, and rank.
Yeah. So this one was Mastro 2004.
Yep. I can see you got the Ruth baseball there as one of the ads.
So this is the high end because their Mastro was the top of the bird. Look at some of the packs they had and the stuff. This was a very major auction. I don't know if I won anything in this. All the uncut sheets, just amazing. So look at Lost in Space. I don't know if you've ever seen those. Those are like a test issue. It's so hard to find.
I do enjoy when they use the proper color photographs. That's the thing about getting one of these catalogs.
Beautiful. Yeah.
At the time, I was buying a bunch of those watch catalogs, and I kind of want to get back into buying them, to be honest with you, because I enjoy it. I have never even attempted to buy anything from that catalog because it's like, guys, you think the sports car thing is stupid? Like if I went into really collecting watches, and trust me, I want to. If I had a lot of money, I'm not paying $1 million for a Mike Trout Superfractor or $4 million. No, if I got $4 million to spend, I'm buying my damn watches, and I'll wear them, and it'll really irritate somebody, and it'll be fantastic.
Oh my God. Wow. Amazing. I just found out some information.
Yeah, from the catalog.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, this is Zorro and the Robin Hood packs. See, there's a little stamp on it. It says 36 count. So that was sent to Canada. Canada did the 36 count. Tops only had 24. So 36 count. So these 2 are Canadian boxes here. It's amazing. I didn't know that.
In a nutshell, that is the beauty of a properly done catalog. Because when you get the images and the rest of the information, you can actually get it. The reason why I say when I was buying these is because even though like I'm not buying any of the watches in this, but I'm interested because this is legitimate research material for some folks, especially some of the more obscure pieces. They don't come back on the market. I promise you, some of these things that sold are still not on the market again. This is from 2017. I promise you, 4 years later, some of these are sitting in somebody's collection. So the only way you were going to see it is by happening to have the correct auction catalog that referenced it.
So I would say that most of those people who collect those high-end watches are collectors opposed to
They're collectors. They're not playing.
investors. Yeah.
Yeah, they're buying it because they want it, and they have it as part of a high-end collection. Because even that watch that I was showing you, Bobby, where it's kind of a plain watch, I promise the buyer probably has a couple of similar ones from that era, and was probably putting together a collection.
Yeah, that's something.
So it's like, believe it, 100%.
So Master was the king. Leland's was actually the king at one time of the auctions, and then it went to Mastro, and then it went to, I guess, Heritage and what have you. And now it's Ken Golden and PWCC.
Yep, and everybody's going to get their run. I think everybody will have
Yeah.
their shot at having their bid, and that's why I'm happy to see PWCC dipping their toe into it. Because here's the thing: from the consumer standpoint, it is better for us if there's a couple. Now, we don't want 500 auction houses trying this, but we would love to have 2 or 3 ones that have a decent amount of inventory that are competing with each other.
Sure.
Because then you have some competition, and it's a manageable amount for the buyer perspective, but it's also from the seller perspective. It means maybe they have to compete on the fees. And if they compete on the fees, that's a win for the buyer. It's a win for the seller.
Yeah, there's even reverse fees.
Correct. But you need that. And like, if you want to have some competition and give yourself a shot, you need something to, otherwise, if you have one dominant player, then you get to pay whatever they feel like charging you.
Hmm.
So you don't want just one dominant player. You want to have a couple of legitimate contenders.
They'll even pay you from the buyer's premium if you have the right stuff.
Correct. So competition in this instance is particularly good. It is to your benefit to have as much of that as you reasonably can.
They're going to make 20 points on, let's just say, 100 grand.
Yeah.
So they'll take 5 of those points, push them to yours, saying, oh, plus we'll give you 5% on top of that. You're selling the item anyways, but you get an extra 5 points if you can sign with us, where the other one won't. They'll say, well, we'll give you nothing. Well, they'll give you 5 extra points off of the 20 points they're making.
And that's a win. And the
Super win.
yeah, and it's better for everybody. That's why I say, like, I don't expect it to ever be the case again. That's why I enjoyed it. It was kind of a golden era where Phillips was doing these. They're still doing these auctions, but like, it was a golden era. I bought a bunch of these auction catalogs. And again, I'm a window shopper by definition on this stuff, because I like thumbing through it and looking through it. This stuff fascinates me. It interests me. I enjoy sports card, but believe me, it's from a research standpoint. I spend a lot more time researching this stuff. I promise you.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. This is one of those things, and I'm
See
not
many-
a buyer.
I didn't see many graded cards. This was the era of the early wax. The stuff
What
that
year?
was
What year was the actual catalog from?
2004.
Okay, so this still would have been. The thing is, PSA had been there for 13 years, but it wasn't as big a deal in 2004 to have the graded one.
Oh, this was the. What's got a fold out? Wow. Oh, this was the Topps archive auction. So they even had an extra fold out. They didn't have that in the watch one, did they? Anyways,
For the higher end one, actually, you'd be surprised. You would be surprised.
but I don't
This
see
one, the
many.
way you can tell, Bobby,
Yeah.
is that for a lot of the catalogs, they'll have one feature watch. For this one, they were featuring a collection. I actually think this was one person's collection that they're showing on the front here.
Oh, no doubt.
So this is actually probably from one collector, because this is a lot of Rolex on the front, and they got Patek Philippe. So I think this is from one collection.
Zach Philippe they're still around too.
Oh yes, they are.
High end. Oh,
Yes, they are, and they still are the high end. Well, they're
Yes.
right up there with some of the high, but some of these classic ones. To put it into perspective, it's hard to see. I'll try to zoom in a little bit just so I can show you. So this one here, just so you can see, the one I've got right there that I'm pointing up at.
yep.
This is a variation. That's a chronograph from Rolex with a moon phase. Rolex doesn't make those anymore. They haven't made them in probably 50 years.
The moon phase was for full moons.
What's that?
What was the moon phase used for?
To show you the phase of the moon that you're at calendar-wise. It literally is the moon phase. It was a moon phase indicator on it, so you would set it to the appropriate spot, and when it
Got
was
it. And then it would, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the thing is, it's not like a crazy complication. There's lots of watches that have moon phases. I have a couple in my own collection. But the thing is, Rolex doesn't make them anymore. And there was a time when they used to make them. And this was a moon phase and also calendar, which means it would show you the day of the week, the month, the date, and also the moon phase all on the watch. And
That's
this one actually
amazing.
had a second time zone as well. So from a mechanical standpoint, getting all those gears to do all those complications and keep track of all those timings with different times and speeds and everything was actually very difficult to do. And that's on an all gold watch. So a lot of these are probably in existence since you like rarity. A lot of these are in the single digits.
Wow.
They did not make a lot of those. That's why they're so rare and so sought after by the collector connoisseurs who are like, there's only 8 of these in the world, just so you know.
So that's amazing because I love rarity. Rarity is, well, rarity is what it is. So here they had this massive, there's so much wax in here, unopened, like Civil War news, the astronauts. That's why astronauts is on the front of the thing, because the astronaut packs are so beautiful.
So there's a lot of non-sport was the emphasis, it seems.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's mostly non-sport. Like you have like, all the packs that they had of the astronauts. Like those are beautiful blue packs. I know red's your favorite color, but even still, blue and yellow pop.
And also, by the way, as a reference point, those are GAI graded.
Because PSA wasn't grading them.
No, but I'm just making a point. At one point, GAI was considered to be a very legitimate, for a while there, they were grading a lot of stuff.
They were the only one out there that
Yeah.
ever graded. When Steve Rocky and the PSA guys moved over and got out of the grading card business, they started the grading pack business. They just didn't. I don't know. Just didn't work out for them. However, their packs are good. The people who are looking was Paul Wright. He was actually one of the best wax guys I have ever met for American Wax, and he knew his stuff as much as I knew my stuff, and we shared a lot of stuff together. He passed away quite a few years ago, a little prematurely, but he was one of the first early guys who knew packs and wax. There's very few of them, and he was one of the old guys, so I learned a lot from him too.
That's fair.
What to look for, and that's what we miss on is sharing the information with the old timers, so to speak. I guess I'm the old timer now, right?
Pretty much, Bobby. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured as much.
I could lie to you, but no, that's pretty much it. Yeah. In fairness, though, and Bobby and I have talked about this, is that is a resource that unfortunately is kind of faded off by the wayside. And there's been a window missed because I was fortunate enough that I was able to take advantage of that. I knew a lot of seasoned and veteran collectors who I was able to kind of pick the brains of and feed information of. But unfortunately, in a lot of those cases, that information was given verbally or through emails or through messages like that. And then basically now those emails are long since gone, like they're gone. So the last vestige that they are, that information right here.
Yeah.
So whatever I got from there, I carry it with me. But this is where maybe kind of a general thought process for folks is that maybe if you have the benefit of some of that, it's good to do stuff like this, share information that way, because then at least there's a record. There's something out there, because otherwise, if you don't share it, and it's up to you. Like I spent a lot of my time in my history in the hobby collecting privately, not doing content, not doing a lot of this. And I could have kept doing it. I had no problem with that. I was fine with it. But if you don't, then a lot of the information dies with you. It goes away with you. At the time I was doing that, I was a young guy in the hobby. I was in my teens, and those collectors are dead. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of them, they've showed a lot of good information that I've retained. They're dead. They're gone. So whatever information I have is what's left. And at the time I was the young guy in the hobby. I was in my teens and things. Well, now I'm close to my 40s. I expect I would like to live a long time, but if you don't share it and disseminate it, then it goes with you, because you're it. There is no next, unless you allow there the ability to be a next.
That's right.
That's the way that works, because a lot of the younger folks were not around when these other collectors were around. So it's not like they had a chance to pass it along anyway.
Mhm.
So you're it. So if you have that kind of information, it behooves you, if you are interested in it continuing forward, to then put it in some format. If you don't want to write, then make a video. You don't want to make a video, make a blog. You don't want to make a blog, take a picture, do something. But it is up to you. It's I'm never going to force that on anybody, but I will point out that if enough people don't, then fades away, because whatever isn't written down, you're not going to find it again. If it was verbally given, you're not going to get it another way.
Well, I think this is the catalog that promote because they had the Topps archive that they were selling. So all the uncut sheets and the wax just made them the big boys. And then the next year they ended up with 10 times more in all the sports. And that was from the O-Pee-Chee archives. So there was 52 box, 52 baseball, full box. I think it sold for back then. I can't remember. 100,000. It wasn't as much as you'd think it was.
Well, I think there wasn't as much of an appreciation of a lot of that unopened at that time. It wasn't thought of in that way yet.
Oh yes.
The people who knew, and they would go after it.
Oh, not in the way it is today. Sure, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
But that's the way it'll always work. That's why I say those catalogs are they contain information. That's why I wanted to give you the contrast. Like I said, I'm picking a different market, but the concept's the same. But I showed you the difference. I showed you the one that gets the 4-page spread versus the one that gets a 2-page spread versus the one that gets half a page. Big difference. The half-page one doesn't get a write-up. There's no background, no additional history, but for the ones that were considered the feature pieces, they get a write-up. Oh, what do we have in the archives? Oh, I've got a picture. Well, here's the thing. For contrast, I can tell you that somebody like Phillips, and I believe it's Arl Bax who runs the Phillips side of it. He is very well known in this sphere because they've done a lot of big sales. So these guys were the Ken Golden of their time, but they've had a much longer track record in this business because they do the sales. This is the Geneva. Well, Geneva, Switzerland is one of the heart epicenters of the watch game. So they know what they're doing. So this is a very serious auction when they sell this stuff. They've been doing $10 million sales and multi-million-dollar sales for years. Sports cards have just started to catch up to that. It was the realm of the Honus Wagner up until the last year or two. So sports cards are still barely catching up to that. They're not in that game. So look to some of these other, if you want to understand what it looks like when you enter into that sphere, the watch industry, it has a cap. It's not going to go into the hundreds of millions, I don't think, at least not for some time. I don't know if it ever will. Coins have already been doing that for years. It's a dying art form in terms of collecting because obviously the average age of the collector is older. We know that. And that makes sense. It makes sense. But I promise you, those people have been spending money for years. Long before the big money was being spent on sports cards. But even for these watches and these things, when they do their research at Phillips, they get the person to actually go and do digging. So something like Patek Philippe, they'll go to the manufacturer, pull up the serial number, take it to them, and get the information from Patek Philippe. And Patek Philippe themselves, based on their records, are able to tell you, oh, by the way, we only made 8 of those. Or we made 6 of those. Or we made them over 3 years, and then this is what our records show. This is how many we made. And sometimes there are little variances and variations. Sometimes it'll be in their records. And if it is in their records, they went to the source to research it. But it's only because they kept those records. But you had to do the research. You couldn't just be like, yeah, it's pretty. Not going to work. You're going to need to do more research, more information.
Let's say they have graded comics here. That's an early grade for CGC. But
Nice.
imagine what they're worth right now. Oh my gosh.
Well, I actually saw the best thing ever the other day, Bobby. I forget the name. I'll have to see if I can find the name later. I'll reference it on a later live stream. I want to say it's like IGA or something. I'm not sure. I got to look it up. It's one of the 3-letter acronyms. I have to find it. But they're grading video games, which I've seen for a while. That's fine. I get it. I've seen that. That's okay. But they're grading Blu-rays. And I was like, yes. I was like, yes.
Mine are mint in package still.
It's like, has my ship come in, Bobby? Let me go to the stack.
What Blu-rays are really worth anything?
They really shouldn't be, to be honest with you. I can imagine there are some from some obscure movies that are done, maybe Criterion Collection. Criterion actually does like very limited runs, and they do movies where they remaster them. They're very specific and very special. You got to be a super cinephile to be into it, but I could see that maybe holding some value.
That's very small though. Wow.
I'm not saying no. I'm only reporting the news, Bobby. I'm not making it. I merely am stating where that's the one area I could see maybe. The Criterion Collection ones, I know they do really good work on. They do a really good job with those. But otherwise, I was like, oh man, I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, I got a lot of them from when they first came out too. So
Yeah. I like that. I like the clarity of the picture. So to me, it was like, no, this is a very good. I'll tell you the one that kind of convinced me that okay, this is kind of interesting. And it's not the greatest movie in the world, but it convinced me because of one very specific thing, and I'll explain the story. So first, I'll read this comment, and then I'll give you the story.
sure.
So Fresh Bread Sports Card says recording history is key. Imagine if you could interview someone today who collected the 1911 C-55s right out of tobacco packs instead of someone ripping a box of Prism. Yeah, and information like that, unfortunately, has been probably lost to the sands of time. But it would be interesting if someone was like intentionally grabbing a bunch of them, their thought process, because this would have been early collecting days. They would have been one of the first, and they're collecting it just because they want to complete the series.
If you read some of those, I have some of those old price guides, but I also
Sure.
do have other things, the collectors clubs and what have you from the 50s. There's some really good stuff in there.
I believe it.
It's great stuff because those guys are still around. If you collected in 1910, you're in 1950, you're only maximum 65, 70.
Yeah. Well, in history, this is what had to happen. They had to do it because I'll give you an example. When it came to historical like recordings and things like that, like articles and things written in books, there were a lot of things done where so in the U.S. They there was a project I want to say in the early 1900s, maybe 1910 or 1905 or whatever, where they went out and specifically there was a grant. The name escapes me now. I have to go look it up, but I believe there was a project where they went out to go try to find Civil War veterans because they realized that like okay, it's been about 40 years, 50 years. These folks are going to start dying off, and if we don't like get some stories and jot down some things, like it's gone.
Yeah.
The ones that didn't die, the ones that are left, there's a limited window here where maybe we can ask some of them. Maybe some of them still remember a couple of things, give us a little information. Some of the information we have is because they went and explicitly went to search for them because some of the Civil War veterans lasted a very long time, surprisingly long, all things considered, because they were very young when the conflict happened.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
but there's only such a window. There's
Yeah.
only such a period of time. And as it goes forward, it becomes less and less and less. And even in the collecting side of things, using the same example, and it doesn't have to feel like 100 years ago. If I say somebody who was buying packs in the 1970s, you can find those folks.
Mhm.
But in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years, it's going to get real hard eventually to find those folks because they won't be around.
No, I know. There's a gentleman when I lived in my condo. He was a dive bomber for the World War II, and they came around to see him. This was 20 years ago.
Mhm.
He to interview him for just his information that he had, of his experiences and everything. So somebody was going around. I talked to the gentleman who came, and he says, "Yeah, we're documenting. We're going around and documenting anybody who had anything to do with the war."
Yeah.
So, and my father-in-law, he was in Hungary when the Germans came. He was a young kid, and he's still around. He still tells me the story of a few interesting stories, but not too much.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's what ends up happening. It's and it's one of those things, and I'm not saying it to be morbid. I'm just saying it to be honest. That I
Mhm.
gave you the story earlier about the hobbyists that I talked to when I was very young, when I was in my teens. In my brain, I still think of myself. I still think of myself as being a young guy in the hobby, but I'm not. I'm not the young guy in the hobby anymore. That isn't the way it works. The young guys in the hobby are the young guys in the hobby. I'm not it. Now, I'm not the elder statement, but I've been collecting for 30 years. So I can't pretend I'm the young guy in the hobby anymore. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Math is against me. Like that's the way it works. But I have those experiences and those things I can share and give. So I have that. But what's going to happen is time will march on. I'll continue to get older. And when it comes to stuff that my dad lived through or my mom lived through, it's like they're approaching they're in their mid 60s, approaching their 70s. And that's whatever experiences they have, that generation, that's it. But that's the way it works. This is how time moves on.
Yeah.
This is the normal order of things. But if you don't write it down when you have the chance, it goes. That's the way it goes. And I don't lament it. It doesn't bother me. I don't worry about it, but I also understand it. And I say, okay, where I can share a couple of stories here and there, I will, because I feel like there's some value to that. And then people can do with it as they wish. But at least I've shared it. It's there, and do with it as you will. So quickly, I'll touch on Jeff Smith's comment here. When he was in Switzerland, there were Rolexes you can't see online. True. In catalogs and pictures, you have to set up an appointment to see exclusives. Yes. Because some of those pieces that I was talking about are obscure only because they had limited runs. The company made it for a period of time, and that was it. So the connoisseurs have gone back through the back catalogs, and they know they exist, and they're like, but find them. You have to go to the auctions because this is 2017. I promise you some of these pieces have not resurfaced since 2017. Whoever bought them in this auction, they're holding them. It may appear in another 3 or 4 years or 5 years. Eventually, they'll come back. But you're going to have to find them in one of these catalogs probably again. And that's how you can trace the history. That is how that works.
Well, I'd like to know where all these packs are now.
That's about, but that's just, it's the same
I
principle.
know where some of them are for sure, but
That's right.
there's a lot out there, and there's more found every day.
It is the same print, but the
But
same
people
principle
are
applies.
opening them now too. So
That's right. It's the same principle that applies. There's nothing different to it.
Yep.
But that's the way it works. I only share these stories because I'm giving a little context, because it's just think about it. And it's something where maybe you did have that experience of maybe talking to some folks that maybe gave you some stories, told you a little bit about something.
Mhm.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of times they don't write that stuff down. And it's with you. And as long as it's in your head, it's there. But at some point, it won't be.
well, that's the best part about writing articles is you can use that stuff in those articles. I wrote the OPG history in the Canadian Sports Collector, 2 parts, and what I know now is would make that article sad, really. So it's just amazing what you've acquired over that period of time. But that was about 10, 12 years ago. So
No, that's fair. That's good. So I think we'll wind it down, guys. I think it's been a good live stream. We've hung out and had some fun, but we'll definitely look into here. Okay, here we go. So here you go. Tom has a comment. Good evening, Tom. 100% found the grandson of an owner, Swedish Cumulus Fortag, who helped through his dad shares company. Master Syrians hockey set. Just need how to share this info somehow. Yeah, find some way. There's a lot of avenues. You can find the avenue that works the best for you. You want to write it down? Write it down. Make a blog. It's out there. You want to make a video? Do that. So it's
yeah, there's always a question about that. I think it's the Tretiak rookie. A lot of people say it's in the Master Syrian set or the I forget the other one. I think it's a Finland. I can't remember. And then a lot of people call it. What do they call it? His rookie is in the Panini 79 Panini.
mm-hmm. I think
But
it sounds right.
Yeah, but we're taking it from an American point of view. Yeah, he was in the NHL, but did he even play in the NHL? I don't think he did, but he did
Tretiak?
sign. Yeah,
I don't think so.
but he was signed in '79 or something like that to play for. I think it was the Canadians. I'm not too sure, but he did get signed, but so he couldn't play anyway, so he didn't play. So there's always been that issue about Europeans, and I haven't followed the European issue because I didn't have enough information. But there are guys out there doing that, and we're trying to rectify. Because it's all about the rookie, right? So we're trying to figure out what is a true rookie. So I think we have to reverse the polls on this question and say, okay, was it a nationally produced issue? Well, here we go. Where's Victor when you need him? You know, what's Tretiak rookie? Is it nationally produced in or? So
yeah, I've got a response here. I've got a response here from Tom. So let me zip through a couple of these and I'll get into it. So first, real quick, I'll touch on this one from the Oaks. So again, my university buddy goes, to be fair, most of the stuff Carlos has told me through years is a good idea not to leave a paper trail. Most of the stuff you've done, it's good not to leave a paper trail. So that's just in general, sir.
Selective information.
We some stuff is better left to the sands of time. Quiet you.
Yes.
So it says Tretiak is in the 3rd series. Yeah, good evening, Jeff. We're winding down, but we'll be done here in a moment. So fresh bread, I have a signature of the last Canadian World War I vet, who was the last one of the last few, John Babcock. He lived to 109. Nice, very good.
Wow.
So Tom here says 70-71 Williams and 70-71 Finnish are his rookies. So Tretiak. Yeah.
So you say.
Well, that's the problem. It's with a player like that, it's very difficult to establish because we're not talking about like nationally distributed items.
It was over in Europe.
We're almost making it up. It's like which one?
But he's a Russian player, and how does the Swedish? Anyways,
but I understand. But what I'm saying is like, so where do you consider what's sufficient distribution? What kind of product is it? How is it? What is it a card? Is it a sticker? What is it? And depending on the answers to that, yeah, they were national issues for sure. No, I'm with you.
I think they have to determine the rookies
Basically.
over there,
Yeah.
and we should not have to determine them. And PSA should in grade 79 and stretch as rookie, but they don't put rookie on it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That's right. Exactly.
Done.
Sounds good.
Done.
But yeah, there's a lot of challenges to that. It really is. It's a lot of different. It creates its own because there's that murkiness. There's always going to be that aspect of murkiness. So anyway, so that's fair. I feel bad because there was a story that I was going to give and I completely forgot it. In the course of the last bit of conversation, I was going to talk about something else not related to when we were talking about the stories, and I'm like, I'll have to think about it. It'll have to come back to me. Anyway, That's all right. That's what happens when you get distracted, but it's all good.
Yeah, they were national issue, but what nation? What nation? What is national there?
No, that's fair. But I think but I guess maybe here would be the thing. So think early 1970s. If you have something that's released only in Finland, what does that mean?
National.
That would qualify, yeah. Does that mean anything more than that?
I don't know. See, these are countries where Canada, we had provinces. The United States, we had states. So what do you say in Europe? Is it nationally, like internationally? So they have to determine the rookie. Let them determine the rookie, or Victor has to fly over and Prague or figure it out.
Determine what the PA says back then. So, guys, what's the definition? Give us the PA definition.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, Tom, I don't disagree with this. The thing is, it could be 150 million. It could be 200 million. So what? Like you could have, I'll give you an example. Silly example, just for the sake of argument. Silly example. Let's say China decided to make hockey cards in the 1970s. Again, silly example. Just stick with me on this. By then they've still got hundreds of millions of people, maybe even a billion. Let's say China makes cards when they already crossed the billion people threshold, a billion people, but they made these cards and they're only in a certain province, in a certain region, and they made 50,000 of them. 100 players, 50,000 total cards. Would that be a rookie card for anybody?
Here?
But no, I'm just throwing it out there. Just a general question. Now, let's say they stuck to international players, and let's say they stuck to players who maybe played most of their career in the KHL or in the Swedish Elite League or whatever, and then maybe had a cup of coffee in the NHL. Maybe they played long enough where they at least distinguished themselves somewhat in the NHL. I'm making a hypothetical scenario.
Sure.
So this player has a great international career, played in the Swedish Elite League, came to the NHL, played well for some time, maybe won a Stanley Cup. So they have some credentials, some tethering to the National Hockey League, in addition to international experience. Let's say the cumulative total is enough where they get to the Hall of Fame. So they're a Hall of Fame caliber player. If you add the totality of their career, international, everything else, they decide to put them in the Hall of Fame. Awesome. Is there a rookie card this card from China? Silly example, but I'm putting in, I'm giving you a scenario where I've put enough components together where, okay, so the player is at least notable enough. The set exists. It was distributed. Big country, but not necessarily big distribution.
Well, you can almost use the Japanese baseball cards from the 50s, 40s.
I'm just posing the question. Again, I'm coming up with a silly scenario.
But that's
hasn't come up.
actual. Like there's a Babe Ruth, there's a lot of other famous guys, and those packs and those things go for a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's baseball, Japanese baseball.
That's the question. The reason I posed the question in the way that I posed it is that I put together these different pieces to leave like, okay, no, they did play in the NHL. And they had a long career internationally, and the cumulative total. Now the Hockey Hall of Fame is its own thing, but
it is.
But what I will say is like the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame includes international players. It includes things like that, or players with a lot of international experience, because they say this is a basketball Hall of Fame. This is not the NBA Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're very clear on this. Like, no, this is the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah.
So if you're a great player,
so
if you're a great player and you did things internationally as well, and you played for the national team and won gold medals and stuff, like that plays into the whole totality of your career as well. That's part of it.
we don't get that with hockey so much, but I mean other sports for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like this question. Is Doug Flutie's rookie card from the NFL or CFL? What about the USFL?
Well, we always said, yeah.
What about
I-
the USFL?
Theismann's the same.
Yeah.
Warren Moon. Keep going.
There,
And
but
who
there are
determines
some
that? Didn't we have that little discussion a little while
yeah,
ago?
there are some players from the 80s, though, that created this murkiness because they played in these 3 leagues.
Yeah.
Because the USFL was a professional league that had some great players in it who then went on to play in the NFL and had great careers. So it's not lack of quality.
CFL was
Yeah.
is a professional league in Canada.
Yeah, it's a professional league in Canada.
So that's their official rookie if they're there. If you want to say tops, that's their tops rookie. You can do that Mickey Mantle thing and do that. It's up to you. However, if it's in Canada, that's what it is.
Good old Jago.
Jogo.
I always thought that was a great Jago. Anyway, so that's good. So I'll think if I can figure out what that story is. We'll do it another time. At least we already talked about donuts and things like that. Very important business. We talked
Coffee
about
and donuts in the evening. Now I'm
Listen.
kind of almost wanting one right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna grab a snack either way. So anyway, guys. So it's been a pleasure hanging out. Appreciate the chat, hanging out, and the questions and comments, even the questionable. It's like, for the record, you saw nothing. You saw nothing. You heard nothing.
Yes, Mr. Schultz.
Indeed. Listen, that man knows better than to say anything because trust me, there are things that I know that bury anything he knows. That's all I'm saying.
Oh,
Berries.
gotta. Oh, watch out, brother.
Avalanche, my friend. Avalanche. Don't even.
Wow.
You saw nothing. You heard nothing. You know nothing.
Watch out, brother.
That's all I'm saying.
He's coming for you.
That's all I'm saying. It's good to have a Rolodex, my friend. It's good to know. It's good to know things sometimes. Some of those you don't write down. Some of those you keep in here.
He's not Randy. He's a savage.
There you go. Exactly. Anyway, guys, so thank you for hanging out. I'm going to debate the Sunday thing. I'll be honest with you. I do have a lot of things I have to do this weekend. I wanted to make sure that I had that. I wanted to make sure that when we hung out, I covered a lot of the big topics. That was a very critical thing. I wanted to make sure we covered that. We'll see. I'm not going to commit to Sunday right now. We'll see what happens. It maybe we'll come back next week for the Sunday one, but we'll see what happens. But I do have a couple of things I need to do. No paper trail is very key, Mr. Ogilvy. Very key. Always. So anyway, with that, questions or comments are good as always. Feel free to do so on your way out. If you have a moment, if you would be so kind, if you could hit the like button, that would be awesome. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to it. I will announce ahead of time when and if the next one comes on. If you are subscribed to it, you will see the placeholder. I do put a placeholder ahead of time. And also on the Instagram, which has been here the whole time, I do mention if the next live stream is going to be whatever day it's going to be, or I'll put it down on the ticker. That's the reason why I didn't do it tonight, just because I'm not sure about Sunday yet. I have to figure it out. Otherwise, though, there'll be a video coming up in a couple hours on the channel with the pickups. And then I will do also a video talking about the PSA thing in a little bit more depth in its own standalone video as well. Kind of some of the stuff we talked about, and maybe a little bit about the PWCC thing, because I do think I want to keep an eye on that going forward, because I think it could be interesting having a little competition. I think that's a good thing for us as collectors and buyers, because we're going to need some additional marketplaces going forward. Regardless, if they do have marketplaces for us in our different price levels, we're going to want those. So the more the merrier in that regard, and let the best auction house win.
Yeah.
That would be the best way. Anyway, thanks everybody. Thank you, Bobby, for hanging out and popping in.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, everyone in the bullpen
Awesome.
and the onlookers.
Indeed. All right. We will catch you. When we catch you next, you will find out on the channel. We'll let you know soon.
Good night.
Enjoy your Saturday.